They hate when you elevate. They stacking up losses, I'm handing them out, yeah, I had to go delegate. It feel like I'm floating, I'm lost in the moment, I swear I could levitate. They never believed that I would really fly, I had to go demonstrate. I had to set them straight. They hate when you elevate, elevate, elevate. They hate when you elevate, elevate, elevate. Yeah, they hate when you elevate, elevate, elevate. They hate when you elevate, yeah. I had to elevate. I'm way too fly, yeah, I'm feeling myself. Ain't no chance I'm coming down, no. Got a soul view to myself, yeah. Why do they wanna come take my place? I work too hard for it, don't need a replacement. This my vocation, now I got rollies all in rotation. Hop on a jet just to take a vacation. Remember the moments was trapped in the basement. Now the hard work is all taking me places. Water all blood like we trapped in the matrix. Bet on myself and go ball out in Vegas. Living a life like I'm rich and I'm famous. Don't see the grind that I know that it came with. Oh. I ain't make it this far for myself, yeah.
Good morning, people. What's good, ATP? What's good with you guys, man? Clap it up one more time. Another time. Let's do it one more time. Boxing Talk Live this morning. It's Wednesday. Hump day. Salute to everybody who was in the building. I know what it is, so it's the time of that. It's that time of the day. Boxing is always popping and bubbling in the space and the content creation space. You got the prime time for unboxing content to be created. So look, I'm always gotta thank you guys and shout you guys who show up here every morning to come and build with me here on the platform. Appreciate you guys. Can't express it enough, man. Shout out to Eastside Easy in the building, ETC Boxing in the building. Salute to you as well. We do have things to build on this morning. Yesterday we had a decent little show, decent panel. One thing I love about doing what I'm doing and trying to push this product here, this brand of Boxing Talk, and I do call it a brand of Boxing Talk because outside of every platform has their own unique thing about them that they do. Here, I like to believe that people who are at each other's throats on other platforms or across the content creation space may find a common ground here and understanding and finally get an opportunity to have conversations and real dialogue over the sport that we love, because that's a common thread, a common denominator with all of us, right? Is that we do love this sport. We might have different perspectives on what's best for the sport or what's best for the fighters in the sport potentially, things of that nature. We all have different ways of seeing it. There's a saying, if there's a sphere, right, on the ground surrounded by a bunch of people, and we all had to draw what we saw in the sphere. When the drawings all came to the table, they'd all be different from each other, right? But we're all looking at the same ball, right? The same exact sphere. So who's wrong, who's right? It's perspective, right? Context makes everything, but it's always great to have understanding of what somebody else sees and how they may see it, how they may hear about it, and how they might process it. And maybe you walk away still feeling the same way you did, or maybe there might be some adjustments in the way you see it once you've had an open conversation. But this can't happen if we shut ourselves off to different perspectives in the game. So I always appreciate that. I love that you guys help to provide a safe space for people to share their thoughts, and always respect this platform. At least, I don't know what goes on in other places when you guys go there as far as how you guys conduct yourselves, but here there's a certain amount of professionalism and a certain amount of respect and fellowship that, I got to shout you guys out, because you guys create the environment. You guys really create the environment. I really appreciate you guys. A real warm space in my heart that you guys bring it that way. Shout out to everybody in the building. HLD here in the building, man. HLD can find common ground in the YouTube boxing content. I can dream. Yeah, HLD. Yeah, HLD. Hey, man. And shout out to HLD, man. Becoming a little bit more regular here. I appreciate you being here. I know a lot of people got HLD. I've seen parts of HLD. Pause, right? But I've been exposed to HLD's boxing knowledge and conversation on Mill City and had a lot of conversation. And like I said yesterday, I've grown to have a lot of respect for his perspective on the boxing, about boxing, But, when it comes down to certain conversations, I kind of know, how to deal with that. But for the most part, you know what I'm saying? I'm glad that he's starting to come into his own here and people starting to see him, in different ways. I mean, not too much, HLD still HLD at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, there's different wrinkles to the HLD brand. I think people don't get exposed to regularly enough. And I'm happy he chooses to share some time here to build with us on this boxing. On this boxing talk here, man. Appreciate you. Big Sarge in the building. Salute the Big Sarge in the building, man. Good morning to you, man. Thank you for being here this morning. Who else we got? We got RC in the building. Grassroots support right there with RC in the building. Thank you, Z Pacino. Eastside Easy says ATP win the building. Salute Claymore. Salute chat. Hope everyone's having a blessed day so far, man. Yeah, for sure, man. I'm hoping everybody has a blessed day, man. Yeah, so a lot going on in the space. Yesterday we left off talking a little bit. Big Herm in the building. Salute. Yesterday, we left off talking a little bit about the Brian Norman and Jin Sasaki fight that was coming up. I've actually been confused, and when we open the panel up a little bit later, I'm actually, is the fight coming on tomorrow morning or is it coming on Friday morning? I know it's a Thursday fight, but with the Japanese, with the time zones, and I don't know. We'll get, by the end of the show, we'll know exactly when the fight is happening. The weigh-ins are in, though. Both fighters have weighed in 146.8 pounds each one of them, both of them taking this very seriously. Clearly, Jin Sasaki coming up from 140 pounds, not coming up directly, he's already had a fight 147, but this is supposed to be not depleted, right? Jin Sasaki. I had some opportunities to watch a couple of his fights yesterday. I sent everybody on the panel home to go and do their own homework if they hadn't done it yet. I did some homework and I do have some perspective on his fight. Obviously, I am still leaning towards Brian Norman Jr. to win this fight, but this fight is not as easily said, to be won as it looks on the surface level. I mean, number one, this fight has, in my opinion, does have a chance of going 12 rounds, right? I don't know if people taking that into consideration. If it does go 12 rounds, how is the judging going to happen in Japan? Is Brian Norman in a close fight going to walk away and come back home with his WBO title? Is he going to deal with that, with the politics of the sport can possibly get him? Like, Brian Norman is definitely taking a risk here, taking himself to Japan. He's getting paid handsomely for this. This is going to be a good amount of money for him. And this does expose him on a world stage level, help him get his own marketing brand going up. And guys, think about with Jerome Boots Ennis actually looking like, according to what Eddie Hearn has said, and I haven't heard anybody go against it too much, right? But things are subject to change. As a great friend of mine and a content creator in the space have said before many a times, unless Jerome Boots Ennis changes his mind and decides to stay at 147 pounds and make that fight with Brian Norman Jr., he'll leave to go to 154. Is there an argument to say that the king of that division is going to be Brian Norman Jr. on the back end of a spectacular victory against Jin Sasaki? I mean, the 147-pound division, it started to buzz a little bit. We saw the addition of Ryan Garcia early this year, Devin Haney. We thought Teofimo Lopez was going to be there as well. But the division started to become interesting, even with the introduction of Delonte Johnson, Tiger Johnson, certain fighters like that. You even have a lot of rookies, a lot of prospects in the game like Keon Davis and fighters of that caliber who are working in the division. So the division is slowly but surely translating into and heating back up into a high-level division. Brian Norman Jr. has an opportunity to sit right at the top of that list. Our unification is going to be possible. I don't see Brian Norman Jr. leaving to go to 154 anytime soon. He's not a huge 147-pound fighter, so he's probably going to be there for a while. He's a young fighter at that as well. We'll talk about that as well as far as Brian Norman Jr., the future of the 147-pound division and what that looks like on the back end of a spectacular performance in Japan. This is world championship boxing at its finest, to see a young up-and-coming, the youngest active champion in boxing right now, from my understanding, and Brian Norman Jr. taking his title and going to defend in the backyard of the challenger, right? But also in front of a huge audience. Jin Sasaki, a popular fighter in Japan, brings a lot of eyes to the sports, and they carry it different out there. Even as you're watching the interviews that are happening out there and the press conference that's happening out there on the international stage, there's a way more professional energy and atmosphere. And it seems like Brian Norman Jr. is functioning well in that space, right? Brian Norman Jr. not being the type of person to talk a lot of, he doesn't really, do that as much. His father kind of handles that for him stateside. In Japan, it looks like he's right at home, kind of doing his thing. He's gotten there in time, 2 weeks before the fight started, so he should be well acclimated to the space. He looks like he's in a good mental space, and he understands what is on the back end of this fight. He understands that a victory is a must, that he has to come back home with that belt. So I'm expecting a very focused Brian Norman Jr. in a Jin Sasaki. What I'm seeing in him is a fighter who understands his opportunity as well, has a lot to prove and has a lot of pride. But does Jin Sasaki, is he a little too, he's a showman, you know what I mean? He puts it all out there for the crowd. This is how the Japanese boxing space seems to have their boxers. They want to leave it all in the ring. They're not so caught up in the prize fighting part of the game as much as it is on the stateside. There's a legacy over there. It means everything. This, I think, also aligns with Brian Norman Jr.'s what's the word I'm looking for? To his standards, right? To his mantra of how he approaches the sport of boxing. So there's a lot of pride that's going to be in that ring. And I think there's a good chance that this got FOTY written all over it. Fighter of the Year candidate, right? These guys are going to put it all out there. Brian Norman, on just looking from the outside looking in, looks like the stronger fighter, the stronger puncher, the more athletic fighter. Is Jin Sasaki going to try to out Brian Norman? Is he going to make it easy for Brian Norman and just stay there and make it a mid-range fight and just punch on each other, and whoever falls first, loses the fight? Or does Jin Sasaki bring a little bit more strategy into this? Does he bring that respect? He had a bad experience against an Andy Hirocha at 140 pounds and got stopped. Did he learn anything from that? Going into a fight with probably even a bigger puncher now in a Brian Norman Jr., does the strategy translate into a more customized strategy that reflects the actual threat that's in front of him, Brian Norman Jr.? Jin Sasaki's already communicated that, he only feels like he's about 80% confident going into this fight. I think that's pretty honest of him, right? Pretty transparent of him to admit that he has a little bit of fear and a little bit of worry about what it's going to look like going into this fight. But that's also a good thing, right? Because that means he's taking Brian Norman Jr. seriously, as he should. He understands, he came to America. He approached Brian Norman. He had a letter written out. He had somebody translate it into English for him. He read it as well as he could to ask for this opportunity. Brian Norman Jr. responded and gave him the opportunity. Not only gave him the opportunity, but said, look, I'll come over to your side of the pond and we can make it happen. It's going to be interesting to watch that come together. I'm going to try my best. More than likely, I'll be up. I'm thinking about actually doing a live. If it is tomorrow morning, that is, I might get up and actually do a live covering the event in Japan, and covering the fight, and see how that goes. No promises yet. I gotta get this locked down as far as understanding when the fight is coming out, right? When does it actually start? We'll figure that out, I'm sure, by the end of the show. Also in the news coming out as of late, David Benavidez and Caleb Smith seem to be getting closer to an actual deal. So Samson Leakowitz has communicated that they're looking to make something happen out in October. Eddie Hearn has confirmed that they've received the offer and that Caleb Smith seems to be entertaining the offer and taking it very seriously. I haven't heard anything else about Caleb Smith versus Anthony Yarde. This was a rumored fight that was going to get put together. Turkey has announced Moses Atuma, Dillian White card that's going to be out in August. You would think if they were going to fight, it'd be somewhere around that September, October area. It's still a possibility. Samson Leakowitz is basically just communicated that this is all in Eddie Hearn's side of the conversation as to whether or not they're going to accept the offer or not. The offer has been put in. There's an understanding of what they're willing to pay. Samson Leakowitz has also confirmed and admitted that he's trying to have the fight happening either in Las Vegas, Dallas, Texas, but get this, even willing to come over to Liverpool if that's what it has to be as far as the negotiations concerned to make this fight happen. We might see Caleb Smith and David Benavidez in Liverpool, which would be kind of, I don't want to say it's crazy. It's not crazy, right? But I think admitting it's more so amazing that, or a good thing that the Benavidez side of the conversation seems to be a little bit more ready to, concede to some of the terms a little bit, as they look like they were being very headstrong earlier and dictating the terms on how they were going to get these fights. But I think there's a realization that at the end of the day, there's going to have to be some concession, because when you're dealing with fighters who have options like Caleb Smith, Anthony Yarde, Dimitri Bivol, these fighters, the big fighters who are in the light heavyweight division right now, it's kind of difficult for you to dictate the terms when when you're not the champion, right? Even though if in this conversation he is an elevated champion from an interim title standpoint, but at the end of the day didn't earn it and doesn't really carry enough leverage or market value to sit there and dictate the terms. These other fighters have options. Caleb Smith has a pretty great viral fan base that supports him in England, and he has a lot of money behind him with Eddie Hearn and his relationship with Turki Al-Sheikh, and his presence in that light heavyweight division. There are options out there for these fighters. So either way, it looks like that's getting closer sooner rather than later, that we're going to hear something within the coming weeks as to what's going to happen with that fight. I think that's a great thing. I was nervous as hell. You guys know how I felt about David Benavidez moving the way he did, or his team at least moving the way they did with the whole elevation with the WBC title and not taking an opportunity to work with Turki Al-Sheikh when the olive branch was put out there. I was kind of nervous that he might get frozen out of the light heavyweight division's conversation a little bit, and that he would have to bend the knee a little bit more to get into these conversations. But look, if Caleb Smith is willing to give him that opportunity, a victory over Caleb Smith, wherever it's at, Dallas, Vegas, England, wherever it happens at, does put David Benavidez back in the light and puts him right in the conversation of potentially getting a winner of a Dimitri Bivol, Artur Beterbiev, or whatever else happens in the light heavyweight division, depending on the results of what they decide to do at the end of their fight. Because Dimitri Bivol may very well decide to go up into the cruiserweight division, and Artur Beterbiev, for all argument's sake, at damn near 40 years old, if he's not 40 years old right now, may decide to go ahead and retire, right? So a lot of belts may go vacant on the back end of that fight, depending on what the fighters decide to do. If that were to happen, that would put David Benavidez in a great spot. Probably be the number one light heavyweight in that division, even with one title. I don't see it being that hard for him to unify and ultimately chase undisputed in the light heavyweight division. He's still talking about cruiserweight division being there and working, fighting against Ajayo Patai or fighting against Zerto Ramirez. He's still talking like that, right? I think that's kind of dangerous. I think this is a big jump if David Benavidez were to decide to go ahead and compete in the cruiserweight division and try to cut 25 pounds, how much weight it would be, to get him back into the light heavyweight division and defend or chase down unifications in the light heavyweight division. I don't like that look for him. I'd like for him to stay where he's at in the light heavyweight division, compete, unify, do great things down there. But it's going to take some across the street politics for him. And the way it seems like it's been moving thus far is that they're very focused on being the ones to dictate the terms, that these fights happen in front of their audience, in front of their crowds. They want to fight in America. They want to keep it in America. I can celebrate that with them. That's what's up. But can they make that happen consistently enough that would lead David Benavidez down the road to undisputed, right? Probably to maybe unified, but undisputed, time will tell that story. We'll take a look at it and see what happens for sure. Also, we've got Antuanne Russel we got to talk about today, putting out the challenge to Richard Hitchins, or maybe not a Richardson Hitchins, maybe not a challenge, but just basically saying, listen, man, I hear a lot of talk going on in the 140-pound weight class division. I hear talks of unifications. I hear talks about who's running it, but nobody's saying my name, and I got to agree with Antuanne Russel. Nobody is saying his name. Antuanne Russel has always been that high-risk, low-reward fighter, a fighter who I believe the PBC should put more energy behind, put more marketing money, more resources behind. I think this guy can potentially be a star in the making, an exciting, explosive fighter who's always looking for the finish, athletic, high IQ, has a lot of history with a lot of these 140-pound fighters, whether it's Teofimo Lopez, whether it's Richardson Hitchins. He's even got history with the likes of Jerron Boots Ennis and a lot of other fighters. And this guy could be involved in making some of the biggest fights possible at 140 pounds. Why isn't Richardson Hitchins mentioning Antuanne Russell's name? Why isn't anybody mentioning Antuanne Russell's name? I mean, even Alberto Puello, who's now getting ready to defend his WBC title against Subriel Matias, was supposed to, from our understanding, we should have been looking at a unification rematch fight between Alberto Puello and Gary Antuanne Russel. That didn't come to fruition. I'm sure it had nothing to do with Gary Antuanne Russel, because if you talk to Gary Antuanne Russel, he said by any means necessary, even if Alberto Puello were to lose, this is the fight that he'd be looking to put together. So Alberto Puello moved from that and decided to jump in the ring with a Subriel Matias. Just puts perspective and to give you some context and an understanding of how Gary Antuanne Russel is being treated like the real dark horse and the real boogeyman of the 140-pound weight class division. We'll talk about that as well. Jaime Munguia also, B-sample comes in. I don't know if you're surprised or not, but guess what? He is popping positive for using performance enhancement drugs in his system and now awaiting judgment at this point. Rumor is that we should be expecting the Bruno Sarasi fight to be turned over and turned around. Jaime Munguia is probably going to suffer some sort of punishment that'll line up in either months or a year of suspension. We'll see how that ends up turning out for Jaime Munguia as well. And obviously, we'll talk about everything else boxing, but ultimately open up the panel as well for the people inside the building to come and share a little bit what's going on. Shout out to Jose Diaz in the building, Anton Ziegler in the building, my brother, assalamu alaikum, flyer frequency in the building, man. Blaze, pound for pound, TV in the building. Salute to you, Mo T83 in the building. Nobody want that Russell smoke. Nah, man, they acting like they scared. They're not saying his name. Let's see here. Jose Diaz says the reason I said that is because Andy Cruz, as soon as anyone does, she went to talk to him. I would rather all our fighters stay here, to be honest with you. Yeah, I get it. I do get it. But this is, you know, I want the boxing space to get a little more comfortable with embracing this world boxing aspect of the game. This is world championship boxing. I love seeing a young up-and-coming champion like Brian Norman Jr. go to Japan to defend his title. I love the idea of David Benavidez entertaining the idea of being open to going to Liverpool to you know, defend his WBC title, right? Or even if I would love to have seen him been willing to, you know, do what he has to do to become an undisputed champion. I would love to see him make that sacrifice to, you know, wait, be a little bit more patient, work with Turkey, the guy who's managing or at least investing and financing and pushing the light heavyweight division, the undisputed titles there, work with him. And if it came down to fighting in Riyadh, I'd be willing to do it off the strength of being able to bring home, just like the Olympics, something, you know, to be celebrated across the space and be an undisputed light heavyweight champion. I would have loved to see him do that. I want to see the boxing space embrace that idea a little bit more. This is world championship boxing, and these champions should always have the opportunity to defend their titles in their home countries, or at least in a more friendlier environment towards them being the champions. They shouldn't have to come here stateside, bring their titles here and defend them in the backyard of challengers for the titles. These things have to be taken into consideration, right? Vegas is a mecca, or the mecca of boxing. You know, Brooklyn is starting to build its own reputation as well, as far as the Barclays Center is concerned. And, you know, Texas, these places are big platforms for boxing to be showcased on. But when you're talking about championship boxing and you get into that conversation, look at Japan and what they're doing over there. Look what's happening over in Saudi. Look at who doesn't want to perform in Wembley Stadium in front of 90,000 roaring, real hardcore boxing fans. Are they your fans? Maybe not, but maybe you can change them over to your fans based on your performance. Open up your marketing brand a little bit. Open up your value a little bit. Bring that to the space. And I would love to see the boxing fans here in America embrace that idea a little bit more and understand how powerful that is. The sport needs to have some priority in understanding that these fighters, God bless them all, the sport is supposed to be here after these fighters. And we need to start thinking about that. As we take from the earth, we should fertilize, you know, and replenish the earth, plant seeds so that the future of boxing looks as bright as it does in the present moment, right? That's what we should be doing and make sense for the sport. Shout out to Big Herm with the super chat in the building. Salute to Big Herm, man. Thank you for the support, man, for that $2. Says, I'm in Tokyo to fight 7 p.m. in Japan. Check iPhone. Okay. Check my iPhone. Hold on a second. Oh, you just mean like check the time? Okay. Salute to Big Herm in the building. I appreciate you. And Big Herm with another $5, man, says, Norman better not make Sasaki an international star. Sasaki got hella signs out there and ads. I'm getting on my own phone. They pushing their guys. Yeah, listen, man, that's what makes this very interesting. And we're going to talk about it. I'm going to bring up Ray Davis in a minute. I see him in the background. I see you, Ray. He just popped. I don't know if he just popped up, if he's been there, but I see him right there right now. So I'm going to bring him up in a minute. But yeah, man, this is a big gamble for Brian Norman, man. A fight that on paper, a lot of people feel like he should win pretty easily. But listen, I think, and we're going to talk about it. If this fight does go to a decision, does Brian Norman need to dominate and win this fight, 10-2, 10 rounds or 2 rounds, 9-3? Does he need to win it inside of that type of window in order to walk away with a victory? Is he susceptible to the politics of fighting outside the country? Or does he need to stop Jin Sasaki? I mean, Jin Sasaki is a game opponent, and inside that mid-range, in that mid-range space, he's a threat in his own right. He's a threat. He leaves himself open a little bit, and he's not going to move around that much. So does Brian Norman focus more on the victory, use his athleticism, box Jin Sasaki, take this fight from him and not allow him to win 1 round, or does he go for it? Does he try to make it happen and knock this guy out and put it all on the line? He does have time to heal up, and God forbid, off of a loss, he has an opportunity to resurge back in the game. I'm hoping that there is a rematch clause in the contract over there, being that he's putting so much on the line. I hope that has been taken into consideration. Not to say that what if I lose, but what if you lose, right? It is what it is. We'll talk about that as well. Let me go ahead and bring up my brother from another mother, Ray M. Effin Davis in the building. Salute, Ray. What's good with you, King?
Peace, Clay. Peace to the chat. Yeah, I've been here, Clay. I was listening. No doubt. The buzz. I was on the screen. Salute to the Queen. I see her in the building. I was about to tap in and shout out to Mrs. Rain.
Shout out to the wifey in the building. I didn't see her.
Yeah.
I'm scrolling right now looking. Oh, I see her.
But yeah, man, always and forever in the kingdom, man. You know what I mean?
For sure, man. So did you do some research and some homework last night?
Not really.
Or did you already know kind of where you?
Yeah. No, I watched the fight 2 times already.
All right.
I know he's aggressive. I know he's a come forward fighter. I know he's definitely high volume. But aside from that, and he got a herky jerky bounce to him like the rest of them Japanese fighters. But hey, except for that guy that Andy Cruz fought, I don't know where he was. He was like a robot, like Rosie from the Jetsons.
Right. He was kind of tailor-made. I said that yesterday when I talked about that fight with Andy. I don't know if my triangle theory applies to anything that Andy's going to see in the top 5 in this division. I think that was just more of marketing, an opportunity for Andy Cruz, who they're trying to fast track right now. An opportunity to put him there. Matter of fact, I'm gonna be honest with you. If Raymond Moratala doesn't take this fight next with Andy Cruz, what does Andy Cruz do? There's a part of me that says Andy should maybe wait on Raymond Moratala, but there's another part that says stay busy. He's an athletic fighter. Activity helps fighters like that, right? He wants to stay in his rhythm, but who they're going to put him? Is he going to fight down or is he going to fight up? Andy's had, this Bozy Ennis approach to boxing for Andy Cruz it's exciting to watch, but there's a certain imminent danger that seems to be lurking in the dark for Andy Cruz if he doesn't manage what's going on inside there. By the time he gets in front of certain fighters, I don't know, it could be a bad idea for him to continue fighting that way.
It would be a good fight if they can't get the fight with him. It sounds crazy. I think he's over there at Matchroom. I'm not sure. But call the electrician, bro. Call Padley.
Josh Padley. Okay. Yeah.
I like that. Good fight. Keep him busy. He's a good fighter.
I like it.
That'd be somebody that really will find out if he's really valid. You know what I mean?
No doubt. So, how do you feel about this Jin Sasaki Brian Norman fight this point? You saw the weigh-ins are in, right? So it's 146.8. Both of those guys made weight, look great. Brian Norman looks like he's in great shape. He has such a poised, he's so mature for his age, 23, 24 years old, carrying himself the way he does. I think a lot of this Boots Ennis and Brian Norman Jr. situation has made it difficult to like celebrate Brian Norman Jr. at times, right? Just to celebrate him off the strength of what he's done, what he's accomplished, and with the eye test and what he's done inside the ring has led us to believe, as far as his presence in 147-pound weight class division. I think Brian Norman, with Boots Ennis leaving the division, becomes top dog in the division. What do you think?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. But Brian Norman does become the guy right now. Barrios should be that guy, but obviously we see what Barrios is doing and where he's going with his opportunities to defend. I think we get. I'm being honest. I think Devin's waiting on the winner of Barrios Pacquiao, but I think Brian Norman is the home run. I think if he can get that fight, it's a home run for Brian Norman. I think that's where they're looking for it. But Brian Norman, man, yesterday, I mean, just looking at Brian Norman is a man-child, man. He's very mature for his age. He's very quiet. He does talk when he needs to talk. Sounds just like his daddy. He just don't talk as much. You know what I mean? But you can see he can, and him and Devin going at it right now. You know what I mean? The world is going upside down because of them two. But the dads who talk the most ish in boxing, well, I ain't gonna say the most, but definitely talk a lot of ish in boxing. They're getting along. So it's like this is crazy. It's like the Twilight Zone, man. Everything flipped upside down here. The two sons that don't talk is getting at each other, and the dad's just chilling, like they had a barbecue.
Yeah, they definitely there's a respect. Another thing that you see going on in Japan, and you see going on overseas a little bit, you know, not necessarily in the UK. The UK gets hostile as well, but as far as Japan specifically is concerned, there is a certain amount of like respect and honor and integrity about the way they carry themselves over there. Like nothing is heated, nothing is crazy. The crowd isn't going crazy. Crazy questions aren't popping up. The boxers are getting respected for the actual warriors that they are, and they seem like over there's a space for the boxers to respect each other for the warriors that they are. Brian Norman Jr. seems to be in his bag in Japan right now. He seems to be enjoying himself, you know, enjoying the actual respect for the sport that he loves. Never seemed to be that excited and participating in the back and forth dialogue or banter that goes on between fighters and stateside, right? So Brian Norman in his element, his maturity translates well with that Japanese fan base, right? I think this could be a real good thing for Brian Norman. I think him becoming he may very well become more of an international phenom and star than Jerome Boots Ennis has become, as he's more of a local stateside, you know what I'm saying, type of fighter who's now just getting into his own. Brian Norman Jr. has an opportunity with a great performance here to really bolster his whole entire profile. What do you think? You're silent. No sound. You're mute.
Must have hit the button by accident. I said, no, you're 100% right, Clay. I mean, what else does he need? I mean, he's shown, like I said, the maturity level of Brian Norman Jr. has been nothing but satisfactory to the community, the boxing world, and professionalism in his own character. You know what I mean? Like I said, usually the dads over there are talking between the both dads, and them two are usually kind of laid back. You know, they say something every once in a while to speak up on themselves or somebody coming at them directly. But for the most part, they just be, I mean, in their own world, ignoring the business. But Brian Norman is definitely taking on a different place. Him being over there in Japan, showing everything that he, you know, how he handles the society and the culture, shows a whole another point that he's trying to make. But yeah, man, I'm all for it, man. I hope this is a good fight between the two of them. We'll see how it works out.
Yeah, I think Jin Sasaki's going to put it on the line, man. And I'll be honest, I'm predicting a stoppage. You know, I think Brian Norman stops this guy, you know. And I think this is a great opportunity for Brian Norman to really show out and I think he's going to get a lot of fans, man. Because one thing about the Japanese boxing fan base, and there's a lot of other spaces that are pretty much the same, even in the UK, they celebrate the winner. It's not about you being from there. You give them performances, you give them that type of effort, and they reciprocate love and they support you, and you become an even bigger phenom the next time you come around there. That's why, you know, I've said things in the past about Shakur Stevenson. You know, listen, if you can't get the love here, go to the UK and then come back here with that support. Become a star in the world, and don't be so concerned with just becoming a star here. If your own community is just like hip hop, right? A lot of these rappers or artists, you know, they try to blow up in their own communities. That's always the goal, but some of them sometimes got to leave their community, right? Go somewhere else, cross over a little bit, let that translate and become a bigger star. Then their community embraces them a little more, and they come and they have their big show whenever the stadium is or the big arena is in their community, and they get it then. This is a situation with everything going on with the 147-pound weight class division and how stagnant it's been to a degree, and the lack of willingness for the champions to fight each other. I think this could turn out to be one of the best things that Brian Norman and his team decided to do was let's leave this confusion and all this nonsense going on in the States. Let's go to a huge audience in Japan. Let's fight their golden boy in Jin Sasaki, the guy who they think is going to represent. There's not a lot of big Asian not a lot of big Asian welterweights out there, you know what I mean, who are blowing up. This is an opportunity for Brian Norman to, walk away and be a superstar.
Yeah, I agree. As far as him dominating the fight, it's kind of hard to say and get a read on it because Brian Norman has shown difficulty with punchers, especially guys that slug it out with him, right? So he can get in there, he can dominate. Even in his last fight, the dude, I think if the dude had more rounds in him and that took it off 2 years and been acclimated to the sport, that guy actually gave him a little buzz in the first couple rounds. It wasn't like he walked in there and just took whatever Guzman or whatever his name was. He had 2 last names, no disrespect, but I didn't know his name. But he took 2, he was off for 2 years. He disappeared. Right. They were trying, and that guy literally was, I thought, outboxing him definitely the first round. The second round, it was like kind of closer to being even. I think Brian Norman did take that round. In the third round, he took off and knocked the dude out. So I believe it was third round. I'm trying to captivate this in my mind, but I know it was a couple rounds there. But Sasaki is definitely somebody that is a game fighter. Now, does his power translate to a style or to the main world of boxing? Because all I've seen Jin Sasaki fight was a bunch of Japanese guys and a couple of Australians. Actually, 2. I only seen 2 fights, an Australian and a Japanese guy. Let me be honest, I only seen 2 fights. But does his power translate when it comes to athletic or strong Eastern fighters from Europe, from Japan, from from South America or things of that nature? That's what it comes down to. I don't know if that's the case, Clay. So we have to wait and see how Jin performs. Like I said, he does have power. He is a puncher. He is somebody that moves around in the ring, and he's not afraid to get popped in the chin. So he'll stand there and fight you.
Salute Joseph Jackson in the building. Salute to you, fam. 314 Brim in the building. Salute to you as well. Ross Klopp, Mr. Your favorite fighter's a bum in the building. Salute to you. Good to see you. Look, Eastside Easy says, and this is a conversation, I knew was going to come up, right? You can't win. Boots Ennis can't win. He's in a situation. He's got good problems. Boots has great problems. You know what I mean? His problem is everybody wants to see him fight somebody. You know what I'm saying? And he has to pick and make the best decision for himself as to what he's going to do. We know, and I saw Brian Norman, shout out to my brother, Mill City, my brother from Love Mill City, who interviewed and had a conversation, always getting those exclusive interviews, had a conversation with Brian Norman Jr., and he talked about, well, how do you feel about Jerron Boots? And it's talking about going up to the 154-pound weight class division. Well, of course, Brian Norman Jr., wasted no time to say, listen, he pretty much said the man is ducking us, right? Mm-hmm. That we've been trying to put a fight together with this guy. He knew that we were open to the fight. We just wanted to handle it in a certain way. His team decided to try to send us an offer while we were already actively getting ready for this fight that we already had signed a contract for. We told them to wait. And did they wait? No. What they did is they went up to 154 pounds. They don't even have a fight announced. They don't have a fight that they're fighting up there. They just decided that they're not going to stay at 147 pounds. So obviously there's a sentiment in the space going around calling Jerron Boots and some people wanting to play with that duck word. I don't co-sign that. I don't subscribe to that idea for Jerron Boots Ennis. I have a hard time believing he would duck anybody, but I do believe, listen, there comes a certain point in the time in your career where you do certain things for legacy, but there's always a business aspect to this sport. Jerron Boots Ennis is in that conversation. 30 plus fights into his career, sacrificing to stay at 147 pounds. We know how much of a struggle that weight cut was for him, to the point where he had to actually hire a nutritionist. At what point does Jerron Boots Ennis concede to the idea that his handlers and Eddie Hearns and Turkey Al-Sheiks and whoever he has as his manager, that their game plan and their strategy might be the best thing for him, that his legacy is still going to be there? One fight, can't make or break John Boots Ennis, but at the same time, staying in a weight class too long, just one fight too long. A lot of people will credit Errol Spence's performance against Terrence Crawford to him staying in there just a little too long. So John Boots Ennis seeming like, listen, I've become a lineal champion. I'm a unified champion. I don't think anybody's questioning who the HNIC is in the welterweight division. I've been in the same conversations of fighting the Terrence Crawfords. I've been in the same conversations of fighting Errol Spence. You guys know what it is. I had some lackluster performances that weren't lackluster for all intents and purposes, but he's just set such a high standard for himself, being in a conversation with a pound for pound generational great like Terrence Crawford, that anything beneath that was going to make it look like, oh, this guy might be falling off. He wasn't able to get up for those fights, right, Ray? He ended up fighting and getting caught up in the part of the sport that became kind of like cookie meal, time to make the donuts every time a fight got popped up for him. So he wanted to get some excitement. He sacrificed, gave up a large portion of his purse in order to make that fight happen with Stanionis, which still almost didn't happen, according to Tom Brown, saying they were still trying to advise Stanionis to walk away from this and that there was no advantage in it for him. There wasn't enough money there for him. Duran sacrificed that much to become the unified lineal champion in the welterweight division. At what point do we allow this man to get the grace to be in a weight class that's more suited for him, to where he can make it in a little bit more of a comfortable way, knowing that the 154-pound weight class is an upgrade in competition, in strength, in threats, knowing that it's a hornet's nest up there? Are we ever going to get comfortable enough to let him off to say, maybe there's one fight? Maybe there was one fight in the welterweight division that we wanted to see. That's not going to happen in the welterweight division. Brian Norman may have to take his time, take over the welterweight division, leverage his success in that division to come up to 154 pounds. And if Boots is still there, we can still see that fight. But at the end of the day, can we cut the man some slack, Ray? Is it possible?
No, and not from my standpoint, for exactly what Bub just mentioned. Boots has expectations, right? He's supposed to be the next coming. He's the messiah of the division, right? Or the sport currently. He's supposed to be the rising star, balls. And all these people want to see him be this phenomenal in the sport. And because they see this, they want to see him.
Look to my brother, Blue Blood Sports in the TV. Go ahead, my bad.
They want to see him fight every single person. They want to see him beat every single person. He's supposed to take off Crawford. He's supposed to make a good matchup with Earl Spence. Well, he's supposed to defend Earl Spence's loss to Terrence Crawford. Let's be clear. He's supposed to go fight anybody and everybody that calls his name out. When no boxer in history has fought every single person that called their name out. You know what I mean? If they were worthy of it. There was a time where they did try to make that happen. As far as Boots doing what's good for him, hey, this may be just what's good for him. This may be a play. I mean, I'm not saying.
Hold on one second, not to cut you off, yo. We got like 50 somewhat people in here. Thank you, guys. Thank you for supporting the channel. Please take a moment to hit that like button. Let's get the likes up to match who's in the room. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, you know, I always encourage you guys to take that opportunity to go ahead and do that. Sorry, Ray. I hope I didn't.
No, you good. You good. But yeah, at the end of the day, what I was saying to you, Clay, is that this might be a play. I'm not going to say it is or it isn't, but we don't know what games or what's on the other side of the filter, right? So Boots may be saying, I'm going to 54. Maybe seeing if this guy's going to start calling him out. Maybe seeing if he's going to say, I'm coming to the table to fight Boots. And then they bring the contract, and now you call this man's bluff again, head to head, face to face. Because now you done opened up a can of worms saying that you want to fight me. And I've been waiting for you to say that, because it was no problem for Norman Sr. in his interview on the Boxing Voice. Shout out to the Boxing Voice. Saying the bill, yeah, you got this fight next. You got this fight next. Yeah, we're going to talk about it. We're going to build on it. No problem for him to say that. Now, he says similar things. I'm not going to say he said he was going to fight Boots, but he said, we ain't got time to negotiate right now, if I'm not mistaken, with Boots and what's the name. But you had time to commit to a fight to Bill and Devin. So I think it's kind of odd and kind of weird that you had that energy for them to commit to something, but you couldn't commit.
Wait. They committed to fighting Boots. They said that was a fight they wanted to do next. They just wasn't willing to sign a contract.
Said it. Yes, he said it. But when they said that we want, you know what I mean? They wanted to make the fight. They want to make sure they're next, Clay. They literally asked, are we next? Eddie Hearn was saying, are we next? We don't need you to sign a contract. We want to know if we're next. We don't want to wait. You know what I mean?
I don't know if that's necessarily Brian Norman.
I think you should go back and listen to that conversation. But he did.
Senior communicated something different. Senior communicated that they wanted the contract, the terms of a contract to be agreed upon first. And Brian Norman said, we're going to deal with that once we get done with this fight that's in front of us. And they even use an example to say that they came at Jerron Boots Ennis to get the same confirmation from him as he was getting ready to put together a fight with Stanionis, and that they said that Eddie Hearn responded that we're Jerron Boots and his team, which, right up Jerron Boots Ennis's alley. This is the way he carries it. It was just like, I'm focused on what's in front of me right now. I'm not committing to anything in a certain way. And I think there was a certain understanding that, look, Brian Norman Sr. and his team have already communicated on multiple platforms, but on the big ones, Boxing Voice, Mill City, those platforms, he's communicated that he wants to make that fight happen with Jerron Boots Ennis. The confirmation was there that he wanted to be next. He even wanted the fight to happen before the Jinsen Saki fight. They were actually trying to make that fight happen before he fought with Derek Cuevas, that he wanted that fight to be next. But Boots didn't want to negotiate anything at that time. So
I thought he said, I swear I thought he said that it wasn't that they wanted to make the fight happen. I thought he said that we weren't ducking Boots in any shape or form.
No. He said specifically, Brian Norman Sr. said, we want the Jerron Boots. Matter of fact, not only did he say that, he said, y'all need to go over to Boots' side, his social media, and Eddie Hearn's social media, and y'all need to press them and let them know if they don't fight us next, they're ducking us. That's what Brian Norman Sr. said. If you guys don't fight us next, you're ducking us. We're letting it be known right here, right now, that is the actual fight we want next. The issue is Eddie Hearn. I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to be honest, right?
I'm going to go back and watch this because
watch it. Take your time, watch it. The issue here is that Eddie Hearn is trying to keep this fight inside of a certain budget. Guys, Eddie Hearn's and Jerron Boots Ennis' relationship at 147 pounds, the financial burden of putting anything together for Jerron Boots Ennis at 147 pounds rests solely on Eddie Hearn's shoulder. So his ability to make this fight happen with Jerron Boots Ennis, and we got to keep in mind the timing here, that Jerron Boots Ennis is at the end of his contract with Eddie Hearn. If he's not there, he's approaching it. Eddie Hearn is now becoming a smarter manager promoter. You saw what he just went through with Richardson Hitchins with the nasty work that happened in the ring as far as Richardson Hitchins declaring his free agency to the world. We saw how he almost lost Shakur Stevenson in the final inning. He had to get it back. Rumors circulating that Shakur Stevenson was going to work with Lou DiBello on making this Williams Zepeda fight. We've seen his experience with Devin Haney. We've seen his experience with the fighters that he's put in the effort, financially supported, and pushed their brand up to get them to a certain point. But when it comes time to that big show, they move away from him, and Eddie Hearn ends up losing money. Eddie Hearn has obligations to his investors at the Zone, and we know he's had a history of losing money at the Zone. I truly, in my heart, believe that Eddie Hearn is more focused on profits and more focused on making these relationships positive as far as the money is concerned. So Boots Ennis, as far as Eddie Hearn is concerned, is I want to get you up to 154 as soon as possible. The bigger fights are there. I have help financially working with a Turkey Al-Sheikh. It helps to alleviate the stress. And if you decide to leave at any point in time, I want you to leave, and I want us to both walk away amicably to say, all right, you're going on to move on in your career and do what you want to do. But at the end of the day, I made some money too, and my investors made some money, and I'm being loyal to my brand. So when the fight is happening between Jerron Boots Ennis and Brian Norman at 147, Eddie Hearn is willing to put it together, but there is a budget. Even when I spoke to Brian Norman Sr. on Mill City before, and I said to him, are you guys going to be a little bit more willing to concede to the pricing to work inside of the budget that's actually there for the fight? Because there's not a Turkey Al-Sheikh budget there for the fight at 147. So what is Eddie trying to do? He's trying to do one of two things. A, I'm going to offer this fight and get Brian Norman Jr. and Sr. to agree to this fight inside of a certain budget so I can put it together and make money off of it. Or B, I'm going to give them space to price themselves out, or put the pressure to Boots to say, look, they're not ready to do this right now. Let's go to 154. Let's mix in a little bit of that weight cutting situation, and the doctor saying that this is not a healthy thing for you. But my ultimate goal is to get Jerron Boots Ennis, a fighter who I don't have the loyalty of, let's say, an Anthony Joshua, who's not going to be here for the long run, who my time window is starting to become more constricted as to what I can do with this fighter business-wise. Let me get this guy up to 154 as soon as possible, or get Brian Norman Jr. and Sr. to to concede and agree upon a deal that makes sense inside of my budget. Brian Norman Sr. is aware of that. He understands that the price is, I don't think he's going to budge on the price that much. I'm being honest with you. I don't know if, I question if that 1.7 million comes back up, will that work out? Especially them knowing that Boots Ennis conceded and gave up enough of his purse to make this even more money for Stanionis. Are they going to sit there and take a pay cut? And is Brian and is Eddie Hearn going to continue to go back to Jerron Boots Ennis and ask him to sacrifice some of his purse because Eddie Hearn has a ceiling on his budget that he doesn't want to go past because he has no guarantees that this guy's going to be here, right? So that's what the issue is. The issue is Eddie Hearn, and Brian Norman Sr. is correct when he says this to a degree. I know he tries to paint Eddie Hearn as like a bad guy, like this guy's scamming. It's not that he's a bad guy and he's scamming, but he is working, right? And at the end of the day, he understands that you guys aren't pay-per-view stars yet. And the kind of money that you guys are trying to get paid, pay-per-view stars get paid that. More than likely, this fight is going to happen for free on DAZN or wherever it happens at. It's not going to be on a pay-per-view, or at a minimum, maybe if we can get you on the undercard to bigger stars than you, maybe we can get you some points. Paying you all this money and us not being able to recoup it on pay-per-view sales and things of that nature is delusional for a lot of these fighters. Teofimo Lopez going through the same exact thing. The money he's asking for requires for him to be on a pay-per-view platform in order to see that money. So there's Eddie Hearn is trying to work inside of those, inside that box, inside that structure that he's been provided on. And he's saying, listen, man, if they're not willing to play ball, take money that makes sense according to what they bring to the table. If I have to overpay them and be in the red, not getting money, just to see Jerron Boots Ennis move on to the next opportunity, right? Once he's done with me, to go and become a star now that I've bolstered his brand, and now he becomes a pay-per-view star, but now he's putting the money in Al Heyman's pocket, or putting it inside of Bob Arum's pocket, or putting it inside his own pocket, working directly with Turki Al-Sheikh, whatever that looks like. He's trying to get his right now. It is what it is. It's business at the end of the day. It's not scamming, but Brian Norman Jr. just doesn't bring enough eyes to the sport to make it worthwhile paying him north of $2 million guaranteed to fight Jerron Boots Ennis.
I don't think 1.7 is worth his value. I mean, I get it. The risk is there because he's putting his title on the line, but at the same time, you're a champion. You're taking a risk every time you defend your title. Why not take the risk for another belt? That's the ultimate goal, right? So I guess you're right. You know what I mean? And like I said, if I misunderstood that conversation, Clay, I misunderstood it. But that's not kind of how I heard it. Maybe we watched two different interviews too, because he had a lot of interviews in the last couple of months. Let's be clear. And I caught like two of them. But at the same time, Brian Norman, to me, according to what you're saying and what I heard, it's not two different things, but it's along the same lines, but it just wasn't a push to say that he was willing to go jump into the fight right away. I didn't hear that part. I didn't hear him going down that line. I heard him say that, he's willing to take the fight, all that. He started off with that, but then he got to a point where, I'm in the middle of training. I don't have time to negotiate a deal. That's what I heard. Negotiate a deal, not negotiate a fight. Like, get to the opportunity of saying yes. He says, I'm not saying yes until I know I'm secure in this fight. Tell him to wait. I did hear that part, but we'll get there. So for him to say that, and then Boots has to take his opportunity to not wait and then move up to another division, then, like I said, now you want to call him out and say that, oh, he's ducking, when the dude was trying to fight you, the dude was looking for opportunity. And the solid that he gave Bill is what I'm saying on the Boxing Voice yesterday or the other day. The solid that he gave him was a definite. It was not the same solid that he gave Eddie Hearn in a conversation. That's what I'm trying to say. It's definitely two different shapes, but it's okay. You know what I mean? I heard it either way. I can agree.
Take an opportunity to go ahead and look it up, because I know for a fact, and I know I spoke to Brian Norman on Mill City. He told me as well that that's the next fight. I know what he told me. That's a fact. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't think there was any confusion in the boxing space. I mean, you seem to be a little, in that space as far as trying to figure out what Brian Norman's intention was, but he made it clear. I mean, he said it word for word and made it clear. We want Boots next. I asked Brian Norman. I said, are we going to be more? Because before, the whole situation was you guys were doing Jerron Boots Ennis a favor. I said this to him. And you guys made it look like it was no skin off your back whether Boots took the fight or didn't take the fight. But this time around, is it different? He said, yes. He said, Clay, it's completely different. This is a fight that we want now. This is not about doing him a favor or saving him or anything like that. This is about our legacy. This is about making this fight happening, checking the boxes and letting the boxing space know this guy is not what you guys think he is. We believe we're that. We believe he don't got nothing for us, and we want to show out. And then he said to the space, and to the space, I'm telling you guys need to go over to Eddie Hearn's social media. You need to go to Jerron Boots and his social media, and you need to let them know if they don't fight us next, they're ducking us. That's what he said, right? Okay. Yeah, I think that's been the whole thing about with Brian Norman Sr. is trying to say that these messages get misconstrued when Eddie Hearn comes out and says certain things that kind of have the boxing space believing that Brian Norman doesn't want the fight. No, it's not that. I think people don't want to acknowledge. People pick sides too much, but people don't want to acknowledge that Eddie Hearn is in a different chapter in his journey as a boxing promoter, and that he's trying to make his impression felt in the American boxing space. But he's had to overpay. He's had to do a lot, overextend himself in order to make these events come together, just to finally get these fighters where they need to be. And then you watch them; they leave him in the dust. And we're watching Richardson Hitchins do that in real time right now, playing with Eddie Hearn's face. And I'm not trying to defend Eddie Hearn, but I am saying at the end of the day, this man can only take these licks so many times before he starts making some adjustments in his business model that are going to cover his back end, unless these fighters are willing to commit to real life, longer term deals. You know what I mean? Like, listen, if you hire me to do a job for you, let's say I'm a landscaper and I'm cutting your grass, and I charge most people, let's say I charge them $100 every time I cut their grass, but just to prove to you that, I want to show you, maybe I do, the first 5 lawns for you for half price, 50%. Well, now that I've done it the five times, I've cut your grass 5 times, I've landscaped you, complimenting me, I'm doing all the work, your rose bushes are looking great, your grass is looking greener than it's ever looked. You're telling me to my face, man, you just one of the best landscapers I ever had. Now I want to bring you up to regular price, and now I see, somebody who didn't do what I did getting the job now. And not only you giving them the job, but you damn near paying them the price that I'm asking. So what's the problem here? Oh, I ain't from your neighborhood? Well, then I need to stop the future of lawns getting done in your neighborhood. I might not be giving these 50% deals out no more like that. You know what I'm saying? I might start charging up front because I need to make money. That's what I'm here for. It is what it is. It is what it is.
Right, 100%. No, all right. That makes all the sense in the world, man. Look, at the end of the day, we're going to see what happens at the end of after this fight. You know what I mean? If it somehow Boots decides to man it up, I ain't gonna say man it up, but I can't say that either. If he tries to hold his weight back and stay for 147 for one more fight, or he decides to say, you know what, I'm done with this. You know what I mean? I'm done with this nonsense. It's time for me to just move on, take better fights, get better opportunities, and just keep boxing on a regular basis. And I ain't got to wait 4 or 5 months to box. 4 to 6 months to box when I can box every 3 to 4 months. I mean, I think it makes more sense and it's more rational for the Jerron Ennis camp. I think it makes a lot more play into his activity, and we can see the division build upon that. Plus, I think Eddie Hearn and DAZN has a lot of or Matchroom DAZN and Queensbury has a lot of fighters at 154, and not to mention that Turkey Al-Sheikh has access to fighters at 154, so it gives more opportunity, like you said, for him to get bigger fights, bigger bags, and opportunities for more championships. So, yeah, I can see what you talk. I mean, I see everything you're talking about. To be honest with you.
Yeah, salute to everybody in the building. We got 61 people in the building, man. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. Please take a moment, hit that like button. Let's help the channel get in the right algorithm. It takes 5 seconds of your time. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up for me. I appreciate you and thank you in advance for doing that. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, take an opportunity to go ahead and do that as well. So look, it is what it is as far as the Brian Norman and Jerron Boots Ennis conversation is concerned. Jerron Boots Ennis seems to be pretty much conceding and confirming in his own way. He doesn't communicate that much. He doesn't talk that much, but I'm going to go with what Eddie Hearn said. It looks like they are pushing for the 154-pound weight class division move. Great fights waiting up there. You can't please everybody. You got to do what you got to do. I'm completely co-signing and subscribing to the idea of Jaron Boots Ennis having even a better, more legacy-driven and higher paydays at 154. I'm comfortable with the move. And I think Brian Norman Jr., they can capitalize off this because they do have that history with Jaron Boots Ennis, but I think this also works out in his benefit as well. I think the performance and a dominating performance and even stopping Jin Sasaki in Japan is great for Brian Norman and makes him that dude at 147, the dude who you want to beat. And you brought up Bill Haney and Devin Haney and his conversations and what he's trying to do at 147. Looks like Devin is back on that legacy trip a little bit more. Money-wise, yes, he's already comfortable there. He has Turki Al-Sheikh who's trying to support what he's trying to do. Now it's just about finding the fights. It looks like it's up in the air, a coin flip between Brian Norman Jr. and Richardson Hitchins, right? And for all argument's sake, depending on what Hitchins and Eddie Hearn and Turki Al-Sheikh to come to an agreement with. How do you feel about Devin Haney and Brian Norman Jr. At this point?
Again, let's not forget about Barrios Pacquiao. Remember, he's WBC #1, so
sure.
He has that opportunity too. And I think that was their purpose and their goal. But as far as Hitchins call him out, I think he laughed at it, especially that fake post that they're going to be fighting on the Bivol Beterbiev undercard. That may be something that may been talked about, not mentioned to him, but they're looking like they're going a different direction for a champion at the WBO. And to say, like, how do I feel about that? He still has to make the deal through Eddie Hearn. Hitchins does, and I don't think that's I think Eddie has, especially after Hitchins put that comment out on that tweet out when he says this is my manager for life and all that, like saying he riding with his manager over his promoter. That right there, like, it's a lot of wrinkles in that bag. I think the Teal fight comes up with Hitchins before the Devin fight because the fact that they have the same manager and they may be on the same page and the same side of the street. Hitchins is interesting. It's an interesting part of the conversation, but I don't know, man. I can't.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the Brian Norman Devin Haney fight. I think that we got willing opponents right there. Brian Norman seems to be on a tear right now. He wants to fight nothing but the best fights. When you have the fighters motivated and willing to do whatever they need to make the fights happen, it ends up being a better situation. I think with Jaron Boots Ennis, listen, I'm a fan of both Jaron Boots Ennis and Brian Norman. I'm not like a lot of people. I don't pick sides in this situation because I think that both guys in their own rights are must-see boxing. I like the idea of Brian Norman fighting Devin Haney next after this fight with Jin Sasaki. I love the idea for Devin Haney to get in a fight with a dangerous fighter like a Brian Norman. I think that's a 50-50 fight. A lot of people will probably be leaning towards Brian Norman to win that fight because of Devin Haney's last performance and people wondering if he recovered from his PTSD, what happened with Ryan Garcia. But I'll tell you this, a victory over Brian Norman will cut that ring off. He will make it. He won't allow Devin Haney to do what Devin Haney did against Jose Ramirez. For whatever reason that Devin Haney did, whether it was because of lack of athletic ability of Jose Ramirez or whatever have you. With Brian Norman Jr., that's not going to happen. Devin Haney gets a victory over Brian Norman Jr. I think this man's career literally catapults from there. I think he's back in the building like he's never left, and it just means great things. And on the other side, if Brian Norman beats a Devin Haney, that's a great fight to have on his resume. That's in front of Turki Al-Sheikh. That puts him in the conversations of some of the biggest fights that can be made at 147. He gets a machine behind him like Riyadh season. We can see Brian Norman go on a tear and maybe become the next undisputed welterweight division champion with the right support behind him. What do you think about that?
Hold on, repeat that. I was responding to Antuanne real quick.
I was saying that I believe that Brian Norman Jr. with a performance against Devin Haney or victory with Devin Haney is a huge thing for his carear, not just for his resume, but also because of the machine behind Devin Haney and behind those fights happening. He defeats Devin Haney. He gets a chance to become an ambassador, Ring Magazine, get the finances behind him, and I think there's a good chance Brian Norman Jr. could be the next undisputed welterweight division champion. Being that he'll have that machine behind him, the finances, the reward will start to make sense to fight him, and he'll get a lane to go that way. What do you think?
I mean, I don't know if the finances will be there. I mean, it depends if
No, I'm saying if the Ring Magazine were
yeah,
to jump
yeah, I'm
behind
saying if Ring decides to accept him and all those things, yeah, it can be, but you know what I mean, that's what we're debate that's what the debate on is now. Like, is the guy worth the money? Is he worth the value? But if he beats a Devin Haney, absolutely, I could see the world turn upside down for him. That's a legacy fight for him. That's something that puts his name into the fish well, as they would say. You know what I mean? Absolutely, he can definitely reap the benefits of beating a Devin Haney. I think that's why you jump into that type of fight. Matter of fact, you heard Bill say this is the biggest bag you're gonna get, no matter who it is out there. So I definitely can see that being a problem.
Yeah. Salute to Echo in the building.
Yes,
Yeah, I think it makes all the sense in the world. I think that is the fight to happen next, personally, for Devin Haney. This guy has a spectacular performance in Japan. Huge audience out there, man. I'm telling you, man, his brand is going to get a real boost on the back end of a performance that makes sense against Jin Sasaki and his fan base. Devin Haney, Turkey Al-Sheikh, this is world championship boxing platforms. This isn't local. This is just what's popular in America. This fight can happen in Saudi Arabia. This fight can happen in Wimbledon. In Wimbledon, this fight can happen in Atlanta. It can happen in the Barclays Center. It can happen in Vegas. It can happen in Northern California. There's so many different places that this fight can happen, and I think it's going to attract the eyes. And on the back end of a victory against a Devin Haney, Brian Norman is going to go straight through the roof, man. He's going to be must-see boxing. Maybe even cross over into becoming a pay-per-view worthy fighter, right?
I agree.
Right. So we'll see.
I don't know if he goes. I don't know if it goes that far yet because he's still with Top Rank. So Top Rank is not really that pay-per-view model. But yes, I can see it happening. I can see it happening. Another thing I want to say is I think if he goes over there and washes this guy first 2-3 rounds and washes him, I don't think anybody really cares for him. I don't think his name grows like that, believe it or not. I think if he goes in there, he puts in a slugfest and they get it in and it goes to the 8th, the 9th, or later rounds. He pulls out a victory with a knockout or a stoppage, or goes the distance and he wins. I think his name actually builds up even more because I think it shows the testament to the Japanese fans and the fans on that side of the world seeing him box. The name of the sport, again, is boxing. A lot of people like the excitement part of boxing. They like the knockout. They like the stoppages and things of that nature. That comes with the skill set of boxing. A lot of people confuse the two. And I think he's more of he's a power puncher. So he's not really a guy that we've really seen in there in the square circle, really utilize all the tools. Not saying he doesn't have them, but utilize all the tools to consider being a boxer. He's considered a power puncher. And I think once you put yourself in that position, and he could put a fight on as a boxer, as we've seen he did with the dude, I gotta remember the dude's name, that he had a no contest with, then and that's in that point, I think we'll see a different Brian Norman. You know what I mean? But people learn from their mistakes. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm not saying he can't, you know what I mean? He's not capable. But at the same time, I think this is how you give the boxers credit when they are able to show different levels in their sport, and especially against good competition. If this guy is as easy as they say, make it an interesting fight. I always say that. Make it interesting. Don't put the risk out there, but make it interesting. Keep it so that your money builds up. And I think a lot of fighters are so reluctant to do so. They're just ready to capitalize on the excitement. And then the fight's end, it's over. People forget about it quickly. It's no legacy to that fight. So I think Brian Norman's idea, in my opinion, go over there, put on a show. You know what I mean? Build the fight, build it round by round, make you go into the later rounds, stop the dude then.
Yeah. I like it, man. That being said, do you picture Brian Norman? Could you see Brian Norman in this fight choosing to tap into his athleticism a little bit, being that, you know, for all argument's sake, there's an argument there to say that Brian Norman is a more athletic. He's definitely the stronger fighter. I would say he's more of the threat, the puncher in the fight, being that the reality is that Jin Sasaki is a fighter who's fought as low as 130 something pounds in his career. Really spent a lot of his time at 140 pounds, got stopped by Andy Hirocha at 140 pounds, came up to 147. Does seem like he's dealing with the weight. change a lot better. But at the end of the day, I think naturally the smaller fighter, right? Not the fighter. Whereas Brian Norman is the career welterweight fighter, right? And he's also been across the ring from the more dangerous opponents. He has a better resume at 147. But does he choose to stay flat-footed? He does. He has a better resume than Jin Sasaki. Jin Sasaki's only fought against Asian welterweights. Like, he's fought nobody for real. So Jin Sasaki would probably be not the bigger puncher in on for face value. Just looking at it aesthetically on face value, does Brian Norman choose to showcase a little bit more boxing in this fight, or does he just try to run this kid over in this fight? Somebody's going to be standing in front of him and not going anywhere.
Well, here's the thing: being a career 147 pounder, Brian Norman has fought as low as 135. So it's not unfamiliar territory to say that he's not willing to fight. He has fought his whole career there. He even fought at 140. So Brian Norman Jr. has his dips and tricks in his weight classes too. I don't think Jin Sasaki, who I think as fighters move up and they get older, they develop more solid we call it what's the names where they're acclimated to different weights as they get bigger, they get older, and they start and their speed kind of catches up to that weight division as they get stronger. And I think he's also one of those guys that can pursue moving up stage by stage, as opposed to being somebody that's been up and down and things of that nature. But yeah, for the most part, yeah, he's been 147. He's boxed around there. He went up to 154, I think, for a fight even, or for some, fought up in that weight. But yeah, Jin Sasaki has a disadvantage from that, but he also has the experience to fight in quicker, faster fighters. So I mean, different things come to play when you have these fighters in these matchups. You know what I mean? You have a slugger and you have a power puncher. So I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is.
Yeah. It is what it is.
What are you talking about?
I don't see him fighting on 135 on his box rec, so I don't know.
Good, man.
But
yeah,
I don't see it. I see him fighting. I think the lowest I've seen him fight was he had his third fight. He fought 132.5 pounds, Jose Luis Leal in that fight. Luis Romero, he fought him that was his debut at 138 pounds. Kier Lucas 140. I mean, he's fought generally speaking at 147.
Yeah, mostly. Yeah.
I mean, but it is what it is. I would think that he would go into this fight the bigger fighter, and he has options. I think Brian Norman Jr. has this athletic wrinkle to his game that he hasn't really showcased since he's made his announcement at being one of those guys in the welterweight division. He's kind of walked these guys down and stopped them early and really beat the brakes off of Santillan. There's an opportunity here for him if he wants to take advantage of Jin Sasaki, who's probably not on his level in any certain category. Maybe showcase a little bit more of that boxing versus Jin Sasaki rather than just steamroll him. Either way, I think this fight ends in a stoppage, man. I do think that Brian Norman stops Jin Sasaki. I think he's just a little too available. I think Jin Sasaki's just there, standing in front of Brian Norman. If you're not going to use your angles and use your boxing and wait and be patient against Brian Norman, you're going to get yourself in trouble. And I think that's any fighter who fights him. I think anybody who fights Brian Norman Jr. needs to pay attention to the threat that he really is. And if you carry it in another way, then you're risking your consciousness, when you get in the ring with him. It is what it is. Virgil Wimberly will be dropping the link a little bit later. So if you want to hang around, bro, it will be there when we open up the panel, man. Hold on a second. All right. I want to move on from the Brian Norman Jin Sasaki fight a little bit and get into this Gary Antuanne Russell at 140 pounds. Listen, I think Gary Antuanne Russell is the boogeyman of the division. I think he's, quite frankly, outside of on paper, and I'm going to continue to give Teofimo Lopez his respect to say that he is the lineal WBO. He's a lineal champion and he's a WBO champion. I will say on paper, he is the best 140-pound champion out there. But I think there's a legitimate argument that Gary Antuanne Russell is a close second behind Teofimo Lopez. I think he's the most dangerous fighter in the division. And I think there's no coincidence as to why no other champion at 140 pounds is trying to get any smoke with Gary Antuanne Russell. Nobody wants to have problems with Gary Antuanne Russell. Nobody's calling his name the same way they're calling, Hitchins was out there and he called out Teofimo Lopez. He called out even Alberto Puello. He said that could even happen. He even said Subriel Matias could happen if he beat Alberto Puello, but he's not mentioned Hitchins' name. I mean, he's not mentioned Antuanne Russel's name, and Antuanne has a history with him in the amateurs where he's beaten him 4 times, according to Gary Antuanne Russell. What do you feel about 140 pounds, Gary Antuanne Russell, in this Hitchinson business? You're definitely muted.
Mute. Why do I keep hitting mute? I don't know. I'll make sure my thing is all right. But anyway, this guy was it Antoine. So I think Hitchins, right, where I spoke on yesterday, is he's calling out Devin Haney. I think he's doing it for the bag. I think he wants the money, he wants the payday. Maybe he believes he can win the fight. That may be true. That's what boxers believe in. That's why they go into these fights. I'm not going to question that part. But what I am going to question is when you got guys at your own division that you can unify against, and you ain't got to squeeze down to that weight anymore, and such as Antuanne Russell, Puello, and Teofimo, who was standing right next to you, really didn't call him out, and you just mentioned him after he ran up in the ring. I mean, you called him out like days before, but once he ran in the ring, you know what I mean, you hugging him and shaking his hand and all that stuff. All of a sudden, you know, you like his boy and didn't call him out. You call out Devin Haney. And then you sit there and say, you know, me and Teo can fight too. So it's crazy. It's crazy how you get all this this avoidance of the division. Then his excuse was, I missed the event. Matter of fact, I even mentioned Subriel Matias. I did mention Subriel Matias, who was right there and has been your mandatory and guys in a position where you were his mandatory. You avoided that fight. And again, who did he call out when he was a mandatory for Subriel Matias? He called out Devin Haney for the WBC. So my thing is, it seems that he avoids certain fighters, certain punchers. Maybe he has a glass jaw. I don't know. Not putting that on him. Maybe he has some difficulty with fighters that come forward. We've seen that happen with I don't know. I can't think of nobody's name today. Thank you, Gustavo Limos. And I'm like, yo, it is what it is. So I'm not reluctant to say that he's ducking these guys, but I am reluctant to say that he's very I think he's looking for the payday. He's trying to move into that what's his homeboy name? Berlanga type thing. They got the same manager, and he seems to be doing the same exact patterns and moves that Berlanga's doing. Forget everybody else. We want the big fight with Canelo. They get in that fight with Canelo, they make it happen, and then what happens after that? Berlanga decides that he wants his own parade, carry out what's going on. Wants his own fight here, what's this, what's that. Then he fights Grimace, and then he doesn't want to fight with Eddie anymore. Now we're seeing a similar pattern with Hitchins. So he wants the big fight. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like he cares about none of that. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, man, listen. Even Teo doesn't call out Gary Antuanne Russell, right? These are big fights that can happen out there. And I would argue that if Teofimo Lopez were to sign with the PBC, as he's led people to believe that there's a potential opportunity there for him with the PBC in some capacity, that I think immediately they will put him in front of Gary Antuanne Russell. I think that's exactly where he would go. I think he thinks he's going to get Gervonta Tank Davis, and I don't think that's necessarily promised as much. I think them taking that belt off of his waist and putting it and having a unified 140-pound champion in Gary Antuanne Russell looks good for the PBC. And I think Gary gives him their best opportunity at doing that. But yeah, I do think that, when you look at Hitchins and his 140-pound campaign, it does seem that Hitchins, I don't know, like, I agree with you 100%. I just think he's chasing a lot of money right now, you know what I mean? And I don't think he sees the opportunity for the money per se in the division. I don't know if there's that much of a threat as people would like to put on there as far as him willing to fight dangerous fighters. I think he is willing to fight dangerous fighters. A lot of these fighters sometimes get this jacket of being like cowardly or not having the heart or not wanting to jump in certain fights. I think there's a difference between that particular narrative and the real narrative that I think it is when we're talking about prize fighting, which is that the money has to make sense with the danger. That was the whole thing with Floyd Mayweather was, I'm not willing to fight against a Manny Pacquiao or fighters you think are going to beat me, but how much are you going to pay me? Because if you're going to pay me something comparable to what I would get paid with a less threat, then I'm going to take that less threat and make the money. You're going to have to exponentially drown out an offer that I get to fight somebody who's not as dangerous for me to consider taking that fight. I think Canelo Alvarez kind of hit it on the head a little bit when he said he wanted, shoot me 150 million, shoot me 200 million, give me a number that makes sense for me to put myself in the ring with somebody like a David Benavidez, who's coming in way bigger than me on the night of the fight. He's a way more better fighter. He's way more dangerous. I can get comparable money to what you're trying to offer me to fight David Benavidez, to fight, William Skull, or fight Edgar Berlanga, or fight, you know what I mean? I'm getting comparable money. Am I getting 60 million to fight him? No, but I'm getting a solid 40, 35, and he's not a threat. He's not a threat to me. You know what I'm saying? Like David is. So with Hitchins, it seems like his whole thing is like, all right, well, I'll get in the ring with these guys, but where's the money? Who's the machine behind these guys that are gonna pay me? So you want me to get in the ring with a Gary Antuanne Russell? What are they gonna say? Because I know if I fight Gary, y'all gonna want me to come over to the PBC side of the track. You're gonna want me to fight him on Amazon, but what are you guys gonna give me? Are you gonna offer me a $2 million guarantee, $1.5 million guarantee, some points on the back end, when I can get $5 to $10 million guaranteed to fight Teofimo? I can get $5 to $10 million guaranteed to fight Devin Haney. You know what I mean? I can go and make a bunch of other fights that give me guaranteed money up front, and I don't have to bet on my ability to sell in order for me to get my money on the back end months down the line, right? News travels like a dolphin in water when it comes to fighters' paydays and the business strategy and approaches of all these other promotional companies. I'm sure Hitchinson and Kevin Conley are very aware of the difference between a guaranteed amount of money up front, millions of dollars, and points on the back end of a pay-per-view if you get that right dance partner. Outside of Gervonta Tank Davis, how many fighters are out there able to deliver to you your biggest payday on a low guarantee up front, and X amount of money's coming on the back end on the pay-per-view selling?
That's a great question.
Right? So is he scared of Gary Antuanne Russell? I don't think he is. I mean, is there an understanding that he could lose that fight? Yeah, for sure. That fight is not going to be an easy fight for him, but it's a fight I definitely think he can win as well if he boxes properly. Alberto Puello was able to beat Gary Antuanne Russell. I think Hitchinson could do it. Am I leaning towards Hitchinson? No, I would lean towards Gary Antuanne Russell to win that fight, but I think fighters entertain that, right? The L isn't the big deal. The bag is the big deal.
That's the problem. They don't fight for legacy anymore, Clay. And that's the problem we have in this arena of boxing. That's why when you hear all these guys saying that, I'm the best, but they haven't fought nobody, they haven't cleared out a division, they haven't won multiple titles, it bothers me, as a fan. I kind of lose respect for them to a degree. I respect what they do, they're all boxers, but to me it's like you're going to collect the bag before you really put your name on stage. You're still early performance in the concert, bro. You're not the main event yet. You're not even before the main event. You're still one of those guys that come on before the lights even come on. You know what I mean? And then you want to get up there and you want to be the showcase. And it's kind of sad that you got these guys that really are willing to do that. And it's a lot of these fighters. Then again, you got the stars that are not willing to give these guys chances when they are calling them out, or when they are champions, or relatively somebody that could be a good dancing partner. You know what I mean? They look to go the other way, such as a Canelo Alvarez, who decided to fight a John Ryder and a Berlanga and a McGee instead of a David Benavidez. So we see it both ways, and I think that's the problem with boxing today.
Yeah. I think boxing's always been a prize fighting sport, right? I just think at one point in time, legacy aligned with money. Pay-per-views were reserved for the biggest legacy-driven fights, but money has always driven these fighters to fight the hardest fights, not just legacy. It was the money. Prize fighting has always been prize fighting. I think once we got into I'm leaning towards the idea that the promoters and networks are what really kind of drowned out legacy out of fighting, because it gave fighters an opportunity to make money. Fighters like Deontay Wilder or Gervonta Tank Davis had opportunity to make a lot of money and not fight unification fights or not fight for legacy, just as long as they were able to deliver knockouts, no matter how much of a tomato can the fighter was in front of them. I don't want to call fighters tomato can. I'm just saying, as much as the fighter wasn't the fighter that people wanted to see him in the ring with, is if the fight itself, as far as the entertainment value of the fight, met the demands of the boxing space at that time, that it was worth money, because people be willing to pay pay-per-views and fill up arenas to see these fighters fight. So gradually fighters became and I'm not going to say that. I was going to say they became prize fighters more than legacy fighters. I'm going to say that they always were prize fighters, but they were willing to do the legacy for the prize because they understood the biggest fights got them the biggest paydays. Today, right, the biggest fights don't necessarily have to be made to get you your biggest payday.
But to your point, and I 100% agree, Clay, is where I'm going with it. What this is, and if you look at Floyd, you look at Diego Corrales, you look at Angel Manfredi, you look at Bud Crawford. These guys all fought on USA. They fought on ESPN. They fought with Top Rank on HBO. As they were fighting, they fought every 2 to 2.5 months. They were fighting, to build their careers up. They were fighting for 40 grand a fight, 30 grand a fight. So they were building legacy and still getting paid some money in a year's time. They weren't making super bank, but they were making money. As they fought more, they slowed down. They went from every 2.5 months to 2 months to every 2.5 to 3 months. And their price went up a little bit, but they worked on it and they worked for it. These guys don't want to work for it. They just want to jump in there, get a couple of wins. It doesn't matter who they are. And then they want to jump into the ring. They want to climb into the ring with the Kings. And they want to get in there and say, look, I'm the best. You may feel that way. They may feel that way. It may be true. But the point of the matter is, Clay, they're not building themselves up. They're not taking those small persons. Abdullah Mason is a perfect example of today's ability of boxers, right? He is moving the right direction. He's probably getting $100 to $200 million, $200,000, a fight. But guess what? He's doing it on a consistent basis where he's making millions of dollars. He's not sitting there asking for all the money at once, but he's building his legacy up and getting paid because he's fighting multiple times a year. So now when we get to that point where he becomes a star, which he's already on that brink, and he becomes the superstar, he becomes the guy that becomes a legacy-driven prize fighter, he's going to be worth every penny. And this is what makes people excited about watching somebody like Abdullah Mason to some of these other fighters today.
Yeah, I think that the prize fighting part of the game is just so, it's always been prominent in the game. It's just the paydays is what it's always been about. But the moment legacy got separated away from the payday, that's when this game became diluted the way it is. It's kind of like the guys dating women. You know what I mean? If I can get what I want from a woman and take her to Sizzlers, that might be where I take her. If the standard is I got to take you to Chops or to Nobu so I can get it. What she sets up for me is the way I'm going to play the game. You know what I mean? Fighters are going to take the money the easiest way possible. If it's me having to fight the best to get the money, then that's what I'll do because I want the money. But if I don't have to fight the best to get the money, then naturally they're going to fight, they're going to do what's easier in front of them. I think as boxing fans, I think the sanctioning bodies, I think promoters, I think they've taken away this. I think the fight game has been a wild, wild west too long. And the fans, especially casual fans, have had such a hard time keeping up with the structure of boxing the way it is that they've actually jumped onto this straight entertainment value of it to say, well, at least if a certain fighter fights, I'll watch it then because I know it's going to be exciting rather than watching boxing as a true sport. Could you imagine a football fan who doesn't watch any football except for New York Jets football, right? Or they only watch the most exciting football, or basketball fans who only watch basketball if Golden State's playing or if LeBron is playing, right? They don't watch the full season. They don't know what the other teams are doing. They don't know what the team that their own player is playing against. They're unaware of all these different things, and now they become extra casual. So now what's happened? Players are going to start to try to play like Golden State. They're going to try to shoot more. They're going to try to do all these different things to try to attract that fan base in. But now the game has kind of lost a certain amount of the competitive nature of the game is not like it was back in the day when the legacy was all about winning championships and being the best version of yourself you can on that night. It's more about wowing and making it to Sports Center and the highlight reel. So it's changed a lot. The boxing game has changed as well because of that, right? Now they're looking for the knockouts. They don't care about the sweet science anymore. They're not really caught up on those things anymore. And I don't know where the change begins, except for when you see something like a Turkey Al-Sheikh and a Dana White, and you just see like these different entities that are getting ready to come into the sport and bring in new leagues with that hopefully will have structure in them. They got to build this from the ground up again. They got to captivate the casual space into the actual legacy part of boxing and make legacy and money come together. Once the fans start demanding legacy and they start to find the entertainment in legacy, then that becomes what they're willing to pay for. And then boom, you'll start seeing fighters start acclimating to the new environment. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. They'll start fighting for legacy because they know that's the way to get to the bag. You understand?
Hold my spot. I got an appointment. I should be back in like a half hour.
No doubt, my G.
Hold my spot. I'll be right back.
No doubt. So yeah, guys, you know what I mean? It is what it is. Let's see what we got going on here in the chat. The Butcher says Bill Haney won't fight Gary Russell because he has a loss. I don't think so. You know what I mean? Haney biggest weakness is his trash trainer. Fans don't see. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it's about money, man. It's money. It's money that's driving the energy. I am gonna put the link out there. We talk about Gary, we talk about that, but let's put the link out there. Actually made some good time today, man. I like it when it goes this way. There's a link. If you guys want to come up here, we can build on this Brian Norman fight. We can build on the Hitchins Gary Russell drama, the Gary Russell 140-pound weight class drama. We talked about David Benavidez. I didn't get the chance to talk to Ray about that. David Benavidez and Caleb Smith, which it looks like is getting close to getting done. Let's see here. Salute to my brother, Antuanne Ziegler in the building. What's up, Antuanne?
What's going on, man? How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. You know, every usual day coming up here to chop it up about some boxing. Ray jumped right off when I wanted to say something to him, man. God damn.
Yeah, he had some things he got to do. He'll be back in a little bit of time.
I'm a big. Yeah, I'm at work. I ain't going nowhere.
No doubt. HLD was good, family.
Afternoon, guys. Good afternoon, Claymore. Man, you hitting this hard, bro. You going at it for several hours, man, huh?
Ah, man, you know, it is what it is, man. Sometimes you get long-winded on these things, man. You get a little long-winded. That's what it is, you know?
The best sport in the world, man.
Yeah, man.
Best sport in the world.
Hey, this fight for tomorrow morning, man,
so by the way, let's clarify that. So this fight is tomorrow morning, right?
Yeah, 4 a.m. Eastern time on the cards. Approximately around 7 a.m. Eastern time for Norman and Sasaki.
Okay. I'm gonna do a live.
Give or take, you know what I mean? But that's where it's at.
All right. I wasn't
ESPN
sure if
Plus
Friday morning or if it was going to happen or Thursday morning. I wasn't.
Yeah, because they had their weigh-ins last night.
Or early this morning.
Or yesterday, or whatever.
Yeah, man. So look, man, let's dive right into it. Salute to Adult Choice in the building, showing love on the super chat. The $2 says Assalamu alaikum, family. Wa alaikum salam, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, man. Let's dive right into it. I also want to talk a little bit about this David Benavidez Caleb Smith fight that looks like it's coming together. It looks like that fight might be actually coming together. I also haven't had the time to. Maybe I'll save it till tomorrow. Let's just talk about Brian, because I want to talk about this Moses Atum and Dillian White fight as well as a card under it. I think they got a good card underneath that fight, man. I'm loving Raymond Ford on there against Anthony Kakachi. I'm loving Nick Ball. I don't like the guy he's fighting, but I love to watch Nick Ball fight. We got Philip Ergovich against David Adelaide on that fight, which I think is going to be potentially going to be the fight, the FOTY candidate on that card. But we'll talk about it another time. Let's talk about Brian Norman. Let's talk about Jin Sasaki. Let's talk about the ramifications of this fight for Brian Norman in Japan right now. And is this a trap that this man has ran into? Did he make the wrong decision?
I was about to say the same. It can be a trap. It can be a trap, especially on the scorecards, right? It can be a trap. But if you watch anything about Sasaki, kid's got power, but and he's young. He got some athleticism. You spoke on it. Culture is very big over there, and they want to put on a show, and they want to put on a show for their people. That's just the way it is for them. Now, I think Norman Jr. definitely. I think he has the better boxing pedigree right now than Sasaki. I think he's just a little bit above him right now, or maybe and that's where I think Norman Jr. may take advantage and smoke this kid. But this kid's not coming to play. He's gonna come and want to knock his head off, and seeing how many times Norman Jr.'s chin has been tested, and we see the Bambi legs. That scares me a little bit for that. The Bambi legs. You could get dropped and you got flash knockdowns, but if you're getting Bambi legs, that to me is worrisome because this kid could crack with both hands. Both hands. I've seen him losing a fight, get dropped, losing a fight, and come back and knock the guy clean out. So he's no joke. Could it be a trap? Yeah. I don't know if anybody saw what Top Rank put out. They kind of like, oh, could this be the next Japanese star? They're like, what? This Top Rank saying this. Yeah. So who knows? Bob Arum did fly out there though, so he's over there. So that surprised me a little bit because the way they were talking, they almost seemed like they were just gonna let's throw him to the wolves. But at least Bob Arum was over there. But it should be an exciting fight. I'm excited to wake up tomorrow morning to watch this crap. I definitely am, and definitely got to go for an American boy, man. You got to hopefully he puts it on him and bring back the belt home.
No doubt,
Clay.
no doubt.
I did some, like we was talking yesterday before we jumped off. Did a little bit more homework. I think because looking at Jin Sasaki, like HLD said, we all know he can crack. He got power. But Brian Norman can crack too. So that makes for an interesting fight. I think what's going to come in that Brian Norman is going to have to, like, his timing is going to be everything. Being able to set those traps and catch him because Jin don't use the ring. Like, we know where he's going to be at. He's going to be there. So, but I don't think that Brian Norman should also be right there in front of Jin. I think he needs to use the ring, use his athleticism, and gifted talents. Like, and I think he can. I think he can get a stoppage, man. I think he can really, I think he can really make his mark in this fight and get a stoppage. And Jin Sasaki also has a way to win if Brian Norman just decides to stand, exchange punches with him. We're going to see tomorrow who got the better defense if either one of them come out and they're defensively sound. But I think Brian Norman has the better defense. This fight.
Real quick, I just want to, if Norman decides to dog this out like he did with Santillán, he's going to be in trouble. He cannot fight like he did with Santillán because this guy has more power than Santillán. This guy can really crack. So we cannot go dog it out. He's got to use his boxing skills and then set the traps to blow him out. But if he's just going to go toe-to-toe with Sasaki, there's going to be problems. There's going to be problems in paradise.
I saw that, by the way, when I watched Sasaki fight. He's very slick inside that mid-range. You get inside that mid-range with him and try to slug it out with him. He's a fast puncher, but I love his combination. And he always ends it to the body, or he ends it, to the body and comes up the middle with that uppercut. He's very sneaky, and I think his timing and his speed is just as dangerous as his power. And I agree with you, man. I think Brian Norman needs to pay attention to this kind of fighter, especially leaving the country like he's doing. Salute to Echo in the building. Salute to Adele. Assalamu alaikum, Agi. Hope everything's good with him. No doubt. And Coach Eddie in the building. How you doing, Coach?
Hey, salute, brother. How y'all doing, man?
Well, we're doing good. We're trying to tap into this fight here. I think on paper, a lot of people feel like there's a lay down fight, maybe even a cherry pick for a Brian Norman Jr., but he is leaving his backyard. He's being a road warrior on this fight. He's heading over to Japan to fight Japan's golden boy, right? Jin Sasaki seems to be like the up and coming fighter they want to celebrate at 147 pounds. Listen, these Japanese fighters have been showing and proving in these fights as time is coming full circle. Like we're seeing, but they're usually smaller, right? The Juno Nakatanis and the Monster Inoue's and fighters like that. But here we have a 147-pound fighter in Jin Sasaki who came to America, right? Had his written letter and humbly asked for Brian Norman to give him this opportunity. You got to think this guy feels like he's ready. He could have just walked with his star power in Japan, fought whatever they put in front of him and built. But he feels like this is his time, right? And Brian Norman said, "Listen, man, I'm cut from that cloth. You call out my name, I'm coming to fight you. I'm not thinking about the business as much. I'm not thinking about the politics. I'm not thinking the fact that you don't got nobody on your resume. I'm not going to say none of that. You think you can do it. Japan, if the money makes sense, we on our way." And he's found himself in the backyard of his opponent this time around. But it's a different culture. How do you feel going into this fight right now? I'm sure you're an Atlanta guy, so I'm definitely wanting to hear Coach Eddie's perspective a lot on this one because this is home team. But where are you at on this fight?
First of all, shout out to the Normans, man. I like the attitude. I like the the being a world champion mean not just fighting in your own backyard. And we seen that a lot of our older champions would travel to different lands. Ali did it. He will fight abroad because he's the world champion. So that's shout out to him for going to somebody else's neighborhood, backyard, and trying to get the job done. Of course, I'm gonna lean towards Brian Norman in this fight. It is a dangerous fight for all the reasons that the two gentlemen just expressed. I think that Brian Norman needs to use his ring savvy and need to use his boxing IQ and don't try to bang it out with this kid, even though you may have that capability to do that. Both you guys are big punchers, but don't turn it into a gunfight. Don't, because what I noticed about the Japanese fighters, they seem to be the ones that are good. They're really good and they're really explosive. And most of them have good hand speed and good power. I think one way that I know the Japanese fighters do train, they train speed and they train power, and they're fast and they're quick. And like I said, you have, those that are kind of like C-level fighters, and then you have those like top-notch type Japanese fighters. And, there's only a few of them, but, the Monster anyway is the guy right now. And everybody, I think he's like a national hero over there right now. So everybody wants to, live up to that expectation. And one thing I know about a Japanese fighter is they have this samurai code that they go off of.
They're adorable too.
Yeah, death before dishonor. So you think that guy is going to go down and lay down in front of this country? You are out of your mind. He's going to be in for a very, very tough fight tomorrow. Very, extremely tough fight because this kid is fighting for. One thing Muhammad Ali said: when the guy's fighting for God and country, he's tough. He's tough to beat. He's tough to beat. When you putting your whole country on your back, or you got God in your mind, like Ali when he fought Foreman, he had God in his mind, and they gave him the courage, and the strength and the willpower to go in there and get the job done against this guy who was just steamrolling everybody, man, who was a monster, who thought that they were going to freaking, send Ali to the morgue. It was that type of feeling, you know what I'm saying? Like this guy, George Foreman, was a destroyer, feared man. He destroyed Ken Norton. He destroyed Joe Frazier. He destroyed all these guys that Ali struggled with and even lost to. He destroyed them. And this is going to be a tough fight. And I think Brian has to be smart in this fight. Don't drop your nuts. Don't get into that type of fight, but box this guy, box him and beat him. Because Brian has the ability, he can box. A lot of people hadn't seen that side of him. He has good boxing ability. So I just wanted to use it tomorrow. And I know he'll get the job done if he does that tomorrow.
Now, I'm going to go to Adam next, but I want to highlight something real quick about Brian Norman that I noticed, right? And I just want you guys to take that into consideration. We'll go back around the room once we get through the Echo and Addo on this one. But it seemed like when he got in the ring with the Quentin Randalls, when he got in the ring with Jesus Antonio Perez and Rodrigo Damian Gloria in these fights, when he stepped up his game and started to fight more, up in the competition a little bit, he seemed like he tried to box a little bit more around that time period, right? Then we started seeing him go to these unanimous decisions. And even in that fight with Figueroa, Boca Chica, that fight right there, a lot of people were arguing that he was looking very pedestrian in that fight. But so when he made his return to come and fight Giovanni Santillan, a lot of people, he was definitely the underdog in that fight based off of what it looked like happened to him as far as when he started stepping up the competition, he started boxing more. But it does seem like as soon as he put his foot on the gas, became that puncher and decided he was going to stay inside that mid-range area and operate there. And it seemed like that's when we started seeing the success. So my thing is, Is Brian Norman going to stay true to what brought him to the party, what got him the WBO title? Is it that smart for him to leave what did that for him and return back into boxing too much? I don't know. I mean, balance is what we want in life. Balance is important. We wanna entertain all. I'm gonna mute you, I can hear you, Anton. We want to be balanced. You want to be able to adjust. You want to be able to see things that are happening in the ring and properly adjust to what's happening in the ring to win the fight. One particular technique isn't going to necessarily guarantee you to win that fight. Things don't work. You have to adjust. But does Brian Norman psych himself out? Has a team psyched himself out into believing that they need to stay away from this kid, not be mid-range? Establish additions, work on the jab, win rounds in the backyard of a Jin Sasaki? Does this guy want to go in front of the judges, or does he want to get this guy out of here? If the food is there, eat your food. If you can step on this guy, step on this guy. One way or the other. I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there, throwing it against the wall, see what sticks. What's up, Adel? How you doing today, brother?
Man, I'm doing good. Assalamu alaikum to everybody. I'm Mr. Casual, so I ain't gonna get all into the sweet science as y'all already put it, but I'm becoming a new fan of the sport, teaching my sons, elementary age right now, and they got a Golden Glove fighter out here in Denver, Colorado, Steve, and we doing a lot of work. We're doing a lot of work at a young age. I've been seeing Brian Norman. I've been watching a few highlights of him. I haven't really been studying the Japanese brother at the moment, but I think I'm gonna definitely get into that. But as far as Brian Norman, what I compare him to is James Toney, because he has the ability to stay in the pocket and not get hit, and he has that power. But James Toney to me didn't have like knockout power, but he had that power like he ain't nobody to play with in this pocket. If you're gonna stay in this pocket, then it's gonna be rock'em sock'em and who gonna win the inside foot battle. So if the Japanese brother can win the inside foot battle and do that slick high behind the shoulder, which I haven't seen, his work. So I don't know if he can get behind that shoulder and see who can has the fastest right cross and the fastest left cross to get in there. Now, far as Norman, his problem from the highlights of his fights I've been watching has always been the stick. Whoever had a really good stick could mess up his whole situation. So I don't know if the Japanese brother has a good stick, but if you got a good stick, because when Norman was fighting that Puerto Rican, the stick was in his face and he just couldn't deal with it. He couldn't deal with it. He had to work his way in there. You know what I'm saying? And he finally called him with one of them hangmakers, as I call him. You know what I mean? And then he was able to do his work in the inside. So if he can work with him as far as win the inside foot battle, then yeah. But if that Japanese find out that Norman is weak or pedestrian, as you like to say, Clay, and on that stick game, then all he got to do is mid-range and stick game him to death, and we're gonna see Brian Norman for the weaknesses that he has, not like a bad fighter. And I say that also because on top of that, he has people with stick game calling him out who see kind of like what I see. Devin calling them out, stick man.
Yeah.
Hitchins calling them out, stick man. There's a lot of stick men calling them out. So I think if the Japanese, if all those fighters see it, I think the Japanese guys see it too. And it may not be the fight that we're thinking about as far as rock'em sock'em. It may be a stick man situation. So that's all I got to add.
I love it. I love it, Adel, is because we talk about Brian Norman making these adjustments and dealing with what's going on in the ring. But have we thrown out the possibility of Jin Sasaki also making adjustments with his team in reference to what Brian Norman brings to the table? We might see Jin Sasaki fight in a different way than what we saw him do against Andy Hiroko or the fighters that he's looked pedestrian against. Has he taken points? I mean, listen, man, the guy said, Jin Sasaki said that he's 80% confident that he's going to beat Brian Norman. I thought that was very honest of him. I don't know if he needed to communicate that because to me, he showed a little bit of hesitation. Whereas Brian Norman's like, I'm 1,000,000% sure you're not beating me. I don't care. You don't have to kill me. Right. So, but Jin's like, listen, I'm in Japan is a different culture. Honesty is respected in the culture. They can speak that way and the fans still are excited about the fight and still believe in their fighter. Right. So, 80%. But that 80% to me, that honesty also lets me know that he's going to pull out every everything he has out of his bag, out of his bag of skills to try to win this fight. He's taking Brian Norman more serious than he probably has any fight he's had in his career. And is he willing to stand in that mid-range and just slug it out with Brian Norman? Or is there some intelligence? Is there a pedigree, right, that we're not acknowledging? Is there a wrinkle to Jinsu Saki's game that we haven't seen that we may be getting ready to see tomorrow morning?
And one more thing I wanted to add before you go. Japan is going to be a very good market. It was a very good market for MMA fighters, people like Rampage and things like that nature. So Japan is trying to grow their boxing scene, and whoever makes a big name in Japan in the future, you know what I mean, they got a long line of fighters. They could just make a bag of money, just like they making a bag of money in Saudi Arabia. So
I love
salute to anybody else can beat some Japanese fighters out there.
No doubt, man. I'm gonna pass it off to the one and only Echo in the building from across the pond. How's the weather over there, Echo? How you feeling?
It's really good weather today.
Oh, great. That's always good to happen in England because England like the rain, man. They like the rain out there.
4 seasons in one day, Clay.
Exactly. So
So
are you
today's
dialed
really
in?
good today.
Are you dialed in for this Brian Norman Jinsu Saki
Yeah,
fight?
I'm excited about this because for somebody as a champion to go to another country, that's quite rare nowadays, you know. And as somebody mentioned earlier, you know, Ali did it, and there was others that did it as well, but not too many want to do that, you know. And this is not going to be an easy fight, or it may not be as easy as people think it could be, because obviously you've got fans of Norman, and nobody really knows, you know, Sasaki really what he can do. We only know that he can punch.
Right. Well, I think for us it's like that, right? But in Japan, Jinsu Saki seems to be the golden boy, right? He seems to be like
It could be, yeah. And this is the thing, is when I always talk about this, you know, styles make fights, but also strategy does as well, and the ability to adjust on the fly. It's a lot of variables as well. I mean, one of the keys to a boxer is to keep on line, a bit like shining a torch on somebody, but they can't shine their torch on you. So imagine you've got a torch on your chest, and your center line's your torch. You've got to make sure you shine your center line on them. They can't do that on you, and that's through angles. But not too many boxers are able to do that, you know, on the fly. What I mean on the fly, I mean like just adjust to that, you know, when they need to.
right.
And not too many boxers in the past can do that anyway, that well, you know. And some do it better defensively or counter attack, and some people do it really good in attack. You know, like Bam Rodriguez, he's very good at that. He's very good at getting the angle for that shot, a little bit like Roberto Duran. But I think this fight, you know, it's not going to be an easy fight, I don't think. But but I admire him for taking the chance to go there and, you know, and basically have a chance for someone to win, you know, away from home. So, because you don't know the judges what they're going to think anyway, and the crowd. Every time the Japanese fighter hits him, the crowd's going to shout in, whatever. That influences the judges as well, you know.
Yeah. And I have questions as to whether or not he even wants to play that game, or if he wants to step on this guy, if he wants to even play the game with the judges. Let me ask you guys this question, though. So at 147 pounds, with Jerron Boots Ennis leaving the division, that's what the streets are saying, right? That he's heading 154 pounds. A victory here, does this put Brian Norman at the top of the food chain at 147 pounds? Does this put him at the top of the list of
with
the division?
When and if Boots actually leaves, maybe, yeah, I will say, yeah.
It does, right?
We won't know until after tomorrow. There's a lot of pieces being moved behind the scenes, and tomorrow's a big day. And until then, we really don't know what Boots is really, really gonna do.
I agree. How about this? Do you guys think that on the back end of a crazy performance against Jinsu Saki, that the demand for the Boots Brian Norman fight can bring in the money that makes sense to make this fight possible? Could we see Boots hang back for one more fight based off of the results of this fight? We potentially get that unification fight with Brian Norman?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That we got to see what happens tomorrow. I say all fights for Boots are still on the table until it's official. All fights are on the table, including Tio. They're all on the table for that one last fight. But we're gonna see what because what about if this kid gets hurt tomorrow? Let's say he wins, Norman Jr. wins, but he gets hurt, right? That means that fight is not gonna be like anytime soon. Right. So so it depends on what happens tomorrow. Because he wants that fight. I know he does, and we all know that. That's the one that he wants. But
I feel like if you're not number one, then you last. There's no such thing to me as 2 and 3. So if Boots leave, you got to fight. 2 and 3 got to fight. There's no such thing as you get, grandfathered into that first place. Nah, I don't play that game.
You got to earn that spot.
You last.
Right.
But that's not the reality of it. A lot of times these guys leave, they elevate, so they do a lot of different things, man. So like I said, at the end of the day, the only fight that Boots should stick around for 47 is Brian Norman Jr. Because Devin Haney, he doesn't want that smoke. T.O. doesn't want that smoke. He's saying it, but I know he does not want that. He can fight Antuanne Russel, or he can fight Hitchins. T.O. is not big enough to contend with Jerron Ennis. It would be bad for T.O. But at the end of the day, like I say, the only fight to stick around for is the Brian Norman fight. That fight makes sense because if he fights T.O., Boots is gonna get a lot of flack. Oh, you fighting a smaller guy. It's a built-in excuse already. It's a built-in excuse. Oh, the guy's small. Because when Boots goes out there and steps on T.O., because that's what's gonna happen. Oh, well, this dude's a freaking 180-pound guy coming down to fight this little small guy. I don't even entertain a T.O. fight from Boots. It's Brian Norman or nothing else. Mario Barrios is tied up with Manny Pacquiao. So he gets nowhere near that belt. But Brian Norman, you make him a good offer, y'all come together and make that fight happen, and winner take all, and go from there.
Real quick,
So
why are we automatically making Norman more the number one guy when if let's say Boots is off is
because he's a champion. That's why he's a belt. He's a belt holder.
Let me finish. Boots is at 154 officially. Tomorrow, this Norman Jr., let's say he beats the brakes out of Sasaki. Still, Barrios would have the biggest name on the resume at 147. He beat the shit out of Rugas.
That's true.
So why are we making Norman Jr. the bigger, like he would be the number one guy after that?
Well, I mean, that's the conversation, though, HLD. I like it.
Yeah, I'm just putting that out there.
And at 47 right now, Mario Barrios has more legacy fights than anybody at 47.
Yeah, I can agree. I think at the moment.
Yeah, but that's why I brought it up. I'm loving it. Yeah, keep bringing it on because at the end of the day, what about Mario Barrios? He has Yordenis Ugas on his record. He's fought Keith Thurman. You know what I'm saying? He is the other WBC champion, although he hasn't necessarily. I mean, there's arguments to say that Mario Barrios is the weaker link as far as champions are concerned, but there's also another argument that says resume-wise, he's a more proven champion in the division.
Right.
So where do we stand? Yeah. Does Brian Norman get the face value credit? The fact that we see so much in him and that he's such an exciting fighter and he's stopping fighters, do we make him that guy at 147, or do we respect the accolades and the legacy of Mario Barrios' journey at 147 and make him the top guy?
I think what my man said earlier, they got to fight.
You make 3 and 4 fight, and then 3 and 4, whoever wins out of that fight, the number 2, who you thought was up under Boots, who got the most.
Well, you know what, Al? I like that approach, right? But how about this one? I'm gonna add one more variable to this, right? One more intangible to this. And if Boots calls out Mario Barrios and they're trying to make that fight, and Mario Barrios stays on PBC Island and just won't leave that island and defend it, do we just call it what it is and just make Norman the top guy there and say that Mario Barrios, as much as he's earned in the division, he doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to unify. He doesn't. His team, his handlers don't want to put him in that situation. Brian Norman is he's the dog. He's the guy who's willing to fight the best. He's the guy who deserves the accolades to be the top of the food chain at 147.
Hey, Ray, Clay, can I say something real quick about resume? You know who else has a lot of great names on the resume? People, tomato cans. Tomato cans. I'm being dead serious. You go to any tomato can, you look at box rec. Everybody's on their resume. Every up and coming champion, Undisputed. They all on the resume. The reason why Mario Barrio has that resume because he was looked at as somebody that's a decent fighter who's 30, but you can beat him. That's why he has those people's name on his resume. He was the B
And
side.
so Mario Barrios is a tomato can.
I didn't say he's a mate. I said he's a sturdy fighter. He was a Gabe Rosado. That's why he has Keith Thurman on his resume. He beat Ugas, but Mario Barrios, in my opinion, he's the weakest champion at 47. He's had a lot of hard fights. He's been in a lot of tough fights. He has a lot of wear and tear on him. He's inactive because of that PBC stuff. And I would not be surprised if Manny Pacquiao goes out there and beats Mario Barrios. I would not be surprised.
Quinto Randall, and I haven't forgotten Boca Chica. And that was just 2-3 fights ago. I haven't forgotten about Norman Jr.
Brian Norman's a newcomer. He came in, and I've gone on record to say when it comes to Brian Norman Jr., he's not. I always tell people, let's not forget, right before that Santillan fight, this man was on a bad trajectory. And it wasn't just Boca Chica. Even his fights he had before that against Randall and all those guys were competitive fights. He looked pedestrian. He looked regular. He didn't come in with that same energy when they upped the competition for him, and he went from 6-round fights to 8-round fights. He became like everybody else all of a sudden. Now he stepped on Santillan, and that was like, I became a Brian Norman fight when that Santillan fight. I'm not gonna lie to you, but we can't deny who he was before that Santillan fight. And now he defends his title against Derek Cuevas, and I thought Derek Cuevas was going to test him better. I did. I thought Derek Cuevas was going to give him a better
too, man. He embarrassed me, man.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So the thing about it with the Derek Cuevas fight for me was I didn't get what I needed and what I thought I was going to see in that fight to make a final decision on who Brian Norman was. It seemed like the meal got eaten up too quick, and I didn't get to see him.
It's like when you
Blue Blood said.
Okay, it's like when you watching, these up and coming, King of the Hill situation. Who's the best out of the 4 kings, right? Mm-hmm. You look at how many waves they got inside of them, as far as when you step to someone and it don't work. What's the second wave? What's your third wave? What's your fourth wave of offense? I think what you're saying, the adjustment. He had only 2 adjustments in his first fights that we was watching him. He only had. But that when he fought the other guy that shot, or the Puerto Rican guy, he finally got into a 3rd adjustment. He finally got into a 4th adjustment. And I don't know if that's him or that was just the fighter that he was fighting, but we're going to find out in Japan.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying. Derek Cuevas was supposed to test him more. It was supposed to make him adjust more. I was supposed to see more wrinkles to Brian Norman's game, and Brian Norman didn't have to show too many wrinkles. Now also, we can keep it 100 that Derek Cuevas sat our brother down on his pockets in that fight, right? He caught him slipping, but we'll give that to the ring rust. We'll say that he wasn't in the ring in a long time, a little bit, bad angles, bad balance. Hey, man, it wasn't, because at the end of the day, stopped Derek Cuevas, but I didn't get what I was looking for. Going into that fight, there was something I was looking for. I didn't walk away with what I was looking for, and here we go. He's going against Japan. I'm so confident in Brian Norman, but did he check all those boxes? Not for me, not yet.
We didn't get what we needed out of Cuevas. But he did give the stanky leg to Norman Jr. in the first 10 seconds.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? He gave him the stanky leg in the first 10 seconds of round 1. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. And so when we talk about the 1.7 for Boots, look, let me tell you, the truth is Bruce Trampler and Bob Arum knew that this young man was not ready for a Boots guy. Plain and simple.
Let's just call a
He was not ready.
Man.
He needed at least 2 more fights. Now he's got 2 more fights after tomorrow. It's 2 more fights. And he looked good against Cuevas, granted who it was. But if he puts it on tomorrow, then Bob Arum, Bruce Trampler over there, we're going to say, okay, my man, you ready for the big dog? Let's go. Yeah. But that's why he needed these extra fights. They weren't going to throw him in there with Boots. That was not up to Norman Jr. and all that stuff that they want to say that they had. No, the Boston said, you're not ready.
Yeah. Like Blue Blood said, June 20th, tomorrow, we're going to see where he stands. Mm-hmm. After that fight or whatever happens, we're going to see where he stands. If he takes the fight, if not, Boots move up to 54, Norman do what he do at 147, But after that, the conversation is over, man. They offered you the money. You turned it down. You got people in the chat saying that Boots ducked Tio and Devin for $11.5 million. What are we doing? What are we doing, man?
Because they know.
Wait, hold on 1 second. Before we go any further, I want HLD. If you could bring your volume down to your settings a little bit, you're popping loud again. We got people in the chat saying, and it is kind of loud. But we was about to go. Go ahead, Addo. Go ahead.
They know Boots. He got 4 or 5 adjustments. So that's the problem. I think when I, as a newcomer, like I said, I'm looking at how many waves do you have when someone stops it. I think Norman is on number 2 or 3. You talking about Boots is 4 and 5. That's why you just see a league between them, like they're in different leagues. And if Brian Norman works his way up to 4 and 5, we don't know. But I think this is his process. Same thing. I would compare Brian Norman with Abdullah. Abdullah is on 2 or 3 right now. He's not on 4 and 5 like the rest of them down there. You know what I'm saying? But I believe that because Abdullah length, he can get to 4 or 5. But sometimes when your height is where it's at, and you fighting, guys 3, 4, 5 inches.
You don't have to hit those different gears.
Man, that's
and I agree with you. I think what we're talking about is the old faithful litmus test, right? He hasn't. If you don't have to, you don't do it. And that's why matchmaking is so important in the development of fighters, because if fighters have that great matchmaker that's not matchmaking them in the spirit of developing them and getting them ready for their biggest opponents, then what happens is they get exposed on the big show. I personally always refer to the Errol Spence-Terrence Crawford fight.
Yeah.
Now Errol Spence was a fighter who went in there, a compromised fighter, right?
2 or 3
and all those things. But we saw when it came time to adjust, we saw a Terrence Crawford who'd been in there with an Eastern European, who'd been in there with a crazy Irishman, who'd been in there with the Jose Benavidez, who'd been in there with these different fighters that forced him to adjust and become a better fighter, that he had gears that he could hit. And that when he switched gears on Errol, as great as Errol is and as much of a machine as we know him to be, he didn't have the ability to do what my guy Addo's talking about here. He didn't have the ability to adjust. Right. So going into this fight, you always want to see the fighters that you're favoring to do great things in the sport. You always want to see them tested in a certain way. You're always looking for those opponents. And just bringing up Abdullah Mason, I'll land my plane. I wanted to see Abdullah Mason fight against a Giovanni Cabrera so bad. You know what I mean? When that fight didn't happen, I was like, damn it, what an opportunity missed for my brother Abdullah Mason to get in a fight with somebody who's slick, who's going to move around, who's going to make him have to cut the ring off, because I still believe that Abdullah Mason has a bit of a wide stance. You know what I mean? He's prepared to throw, and I think it messes with his athleticism just a little bit in the ring. And I think a Giovanni Cabrera was going to kind of iron that wrinkle out for him, like give him issues where he'd have to figure it out. Maybe he wouldn't be able to stop him until like the 8th round, 7th, 8th round, and he was going to have to adjust, and that was going to elevate him to the next fight. So he gets in the ring with who he got in the ring with. I can't remember, but it was just like it was like the fighter that he always fights against, right? The same thing with the fight he just had recently. So when he gets in the ring with a Sam Noakes, as much as Sam Noakes shouldn't be that much of an issue, that European boxing style, it'll be a different look for Abdullah Mason to take a look at. I think he'll do okay, but I wanted to see him go through that earlier before he got into a championship fight. I wanted to see him.
Giovanni would have been a great litmus test. If you see what he did to Pitbull Cruz in that one fight, he made him look kind of stupid, right? Yep. Even though they gave Pitbull Cruz the win, but Giovanni was had angles and nice. He was doing some nice movement in that fight. So I hear what you're saying with that.
Yeah, and let's be honest, there's an argument to be made that Robert Garcia and Rayo kind of saw the blueprint, right? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Right? And Rayo came in all of a sudden and became, all of a sudden he was like a butterfly, like a bee, right?
He turned into Pernell Whitaker in there.
Hey, but you know what though, Clay? Like everything y'all saying is kind of spot on, because at the end of the day, when a fighter does struggle and have adversity, it gives you something to work on. Sometimes when you're too successful, you just say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You just keep doing the same thing in camp. But if you go back, you get dropped, you get hurt, or you get the stinky leg, or you don't look so good. Okay, let's see why you didn't look so good. Let's see if we can make an adjustment. See if we can get better. Yeah, I think that's what happened a lot of times. So adversity is good, especially if you got a young fighter who's coming up. You need a little adversity. You need to struggle a little bit. That way you don't get the big head like Devin Haney. He had it so good for a long time. Then we got in there with Ryan. You know what I'm saying? That the holes that was in his games were exposed. You know what I'm saying? So now he had something that he needed to work on. He was getting away with it so long, and then somebody finally made him pay for it. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it was. You know, at the end of the day, yeah, Ryan did pop dirty, he did cheat, there's a no contest, but that hole still existed in his game, regardless. It was just waiting.
Right.
It was there for somebody to exploit it.
Yeah,
and that's what it's all about, making adjustments.
100%, man. And it's about that development. That's one thing I always give Top Rank respect for. I think they're one of the best at doing that. They develop their fighters. You know what I mean? They match make based off of development. You can see it. You know, like the way they were going to move with Abdullah in that Giovanni Cabrera fight was a Top Rank. That was cookie cutter Top Rank. Like, okay, you're doing well with these punchers, these flat-footed fighters. We loving it, but we trying to make a decision as to whether or not we're going to push you up and get you into some championship fights, or whether or not there's more. We need to throw Giovanni Cabrera in with him. I know you guys are sleeping on him because, he lost against Isak, but look at the way he fights. This is going to be a look that Abdullah Mason needs to see.
Hey, there's a reason why they turned down De Los Santos for the championship fight that Saturday night. There's a reason for that.
Intelligence. They're good at that. They see that. They're like,
they know that he's not ready for that young guy. I mean, for no De Los Santos. He's not. I don't think he is.
Yeah. His lateral movement, that's the only thing that we're looking at. And that's why I kind of compared him to Brian Norman, because they both have lateral movement problems. They don't have no problem stepping to you. They some step-on brothers, no problem. Right. But when you're talking about lateral movement, getting in, getting out the pocket, before you know what happened, I'm coming back with another right cross. I don't see that explosiveness coming from a different angle. And so that's definitely the angles that I would say Brian and Abdullah, you know what I'm saying, need to work on.
Yeah. I agree with Blue Blood. Shout out Blue Blood Sports TV in the building, my brother, man. Blue, I don't know when you're going to give me that call and we're going to start doing what we're supposed to be doing, bro. I'm giving you spaces. I know you're dealing with things with the family, so I know what's going on, but you still, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? But,
hey, Addo, that casual label gone, man. You ain't no casual fan no more, Addo.
Antuanne. Blue said the reason people don't include Barrios is because PBC won't make other fights. They didn't want to make the Stanios fight for Boots. I agree with you. That's why I said if Mario Barrios can't get off of PBC Island and get involved with the conversation at 147, I got to give Brian Norman the title of the HNIC of the 147-pound weight class division on Boots' departure.
Oh, no, I definitely agree with that, Clay. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I don't have no objection to that.
If you ain't going to make yourself available and do like Errol did, and say, listen, Al, respectfully, I appreciate you protecting me and trying to do what you think is best for me, but, bro, I need to make these fights happen, or I need to go to 154 and get the hell about 147. Excuse my French. At the end of the day, if he's not in the conversation, I'm not putting him in the conversation. You know what I'm saying? He got.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right. If I'm Brian Norman, I'm going at Devin Haney. If I'm Brian Norman, I'm going at Devin Haney.
100%.
I'm calling this bluff. Be like, okay, let's fight, because I think that's a safer fight than the Boots fight. You know, fighting Boots, that's a higher chance of losing that fight than it was the Devin Haney fight.
Right? You guys heard what he said on Twitter. He's already looking for he just clout chasing my name. Like what? You know what I mean? No, he not.
Oh, if I'm Brian Norman, I heard Bill Haney and Brian Norman Sr. talking. So after this fight, hey, let's do business.
Me too.
You know, I want the friggin' Devin Haney fight, and go ahead and let Boots go ahead and move up to 54.
Let's wait, guys. Let's segue into that, right? Like Jinson Saki, Brian Norman tomorrow morning. We'll follow up. I think I am going to do a live in the morning. I don't know how many people are going to be there with me, but I think I am going to do it. But that being said, we'll wait for the end results of that fight to revisit.
Do we have the first new Japanese welterweight champion in the history of boxing? Or is our guy going to put the flag down, stamp on it like Hiroshima, and go?
Have him throwing the peace sign when he leave, right? The famous Japanese peace sign. You know what I mean?
You don't want to do that there. You can wait till you get home.
We don't want no problems.
Yeah.
But segueing into Devin Haney, Bill Haney, Brian Norman, you know, the Bill Haney. Bill Haney's been on a campaign lately. He's on Boxing Voice, maybe even right now at this moment on Boxing Voice. He's on different platforms. He's doing what he does. He's back at it. He's back
Down
at
business.
it. He's pushing his product, bro. His product is his son. He doing what he doing, and you either hate him or you love him for it. But it don't stop. One monkey don't stop no show with Bill. He's on his job, right? But he's campaigning. The famous hit list came out a few weeks ago, and he had this hit list. Teofimo was at the top of the hit list. Teofimo's not there anymore. Teofimo doesn't want to do business the way Turkey wants to do it as far as the Devin Haney conversation is concerned. So scratch off Teofimo. Shakur's got Williams Zepeda that he's getting ready to deal with. We'll see what Shakur does later on down the line. It looks like the next on that list is going to be Brian Norman Jr., and we've seen they had a conversation on the Boxing Voice. Seems like both fathers are on the same page. They're okay in the spirit of legacy and good fights being put together. No smoke, no insulting, no beef yet is coming out of it. This fight looks like there's a good chance on the back end of a victory with Brian Norman Jr. and Jin Sasaki that Devin Haney may be looking to coordinate something with Brian Norman Jr. Where are you guys at as far as value for this fight for Devin Haney and value of this fight for a Brian Norman Jr. if it gets put together, hypothetically speaking?
Oh, what's up?
And, well, I want to start off with I'm gonna start right over to my right here, man. Go right over to HLD, man. And let him tap into it. I know this is going to be interesting.
That fight is never happening. It's all crap. Plain and simple. Bill Haney's trying to stay relevant. He's trying to get that payday is what he's trying to do. He's just trying to stay relevant so hopefully he could get the fish that he actually wants because he really won't name it. He's just saying what you guys think, what you guys want. But he won't put a name on it. So we know what he's doing. I mean, Eddie Hearn said it, bro. They spent their Ryan Garcia money and they need a next payday. And they don't know where to get it from. Now, are all the fights still on the table? Look, the Teal fight is still on the table. Boots is still on the table with Teal. All these fights that are connected with Turkey are still on the table until it's official that it's not. And they're not because they all have signed agreements. Teal's got contracts signed. It's not even an agreement. It's a contract. So all these fights are still available, but he ain't going to put his son after getting demolished with Ryan Garcia. And we saw the Tom and Haney fight with Ramirez. He ain't going to put him with no damn Boots. Who are we kidding?
Brian Norman.
Haney needs a Cambosos 3. He needs a Ramirez 2 as a tune-up. Rebuild his son. I don't know what's the problem with anybody saying rebuild. This kid's got problems. It's not to make fun of. It's just the damn truth. Rebuild your son. Get his confidence back. Let his nuts hang again, bro. Because they shrunk up. And that's it. I don't believe anything with Haney's until further notice. Until I see someone in the ring with him. But it ain't going to be no killer. I tell you that.
Okay. Coach, where you at, man? The Georgia boy is getting a lot of attention right now on the back end of this fight. He's putting Georgia on the map. You know what I mean? He's back at it again. When was the last big star in Georgia? Was it Holyfield? Who was the last big guy?
We had Holyfield. We had Vernon Forrest, man.
Okay. Rest in peace to the great Vernon, man. But here we got Brian Norman, young, hungry, 24 years old, punching power, WBO champion, youngest active champion in the world. Got Bill Haney on his helmet saying that Debo won a piece of that. What do you think about that fight?
I like that fight, and if I'm Norman's, I'm pursuing that fight. I mean, I'm not even worried about the Boots fight. Let Boots go ahead and move on to 54. Like I said, the Boots fight is a much harder fight for Brian Norman than the Devin Haney fight. That's a fight, you know, that you don't have to worry about the possibility of getting knocked out. You fight Boots, that possibility is on the table that you can get stopped. You know what I'm saying? I think Boots, in my opinion, Boots is a better fighter than Devin Haney. There's no shade to Devin Haney, but Boots to me is just a better fighter. Like I say, if I'm Brian Norman, I'm taking whatever concessions that I can get to make that fight. I ain't saying go out there and take no $100,000, but they come at me with 1.2, 1.5. I'm taking it. I'm taking it. I'm not. I think that's the problem. I think a lot of these guys, man. I'm not saying price yourself out, but at some point in time, you got to look at the position that the person is in that you're fighting. And Devin Haney is in a position, and if you are able to go out there and beat him, you can maybe not take that position, but it's definitely going to boost your profile because Devin Haney does have a good profile right now, and I'm taking that fight, and I'm doing whatever I take it. That way, if the fight doesn't happen, it's going to be solely on the backs of the Haneys. It's not going to be nothing to do with me. I'm going to give everything. It just matter of fact, just send the contract over. I ain't even going to read it, as long as the money look decent, and I'm signing it.
Take it.
And I'm making it happen. You know what I'm saying? Give me 1.5. Let's roll. Let's go. I ain't talking about now it's worth $7 million. I'm not even worried, Devin. I'm not even worried about what you're making. I don't care what you're making. I want that fight. Cause I think James Toney, when he fought Michael Nunn, I think this dude took like $50,000 or $70,000, something like that, man. Because he knew what time it was. When you know what time it is, you ain't worried about the money because you gotta look at the big picture. Sometimes it's like being an apprentice in a trade school. Yeah, I make $7 an hour now when I'm starting off, but the end result is that I'm gonna be making X, Y, and Z when I get finished. Yeah. So don't look at the money sometimes. Look at the opportunity. If he offer you that opportunity, you take that fight, man. And you push for that fight because they already said they want it. Devin Haney already called you out your name, said you no good, this, that, and the third. Okay, well, show me. Show me. Send the contract over.
Let's get it done, man. Let's not play
Let's get it in,
Yeah, I feel you, man. I'm on the same page as you when it comes to that. And we saw Devin do it when he knew George Kambosos. When he had that opportunity, George Kambosos, he knew, right? He said, "I don't care what you offering me, bro. I'm coming over Australia and getting that. That's money. That's undisputed. I know you ain't beating me. I don't give a damn. Don't even worry about it, bro. Yeah, rematch back in your yard for that part too. We gonna do all that." Yeah, you know what I'm saying? This is the easiest undisputed championship path to undisputed I've ever seen in my life. I'm not gonna let this walk away because you owe me money, brother. We ain't gonna let money get in the way of this. That being said, moving on to Adel, man, where you at? Brian Norman Jr., up and coming superstar, trying to make his name felt in the world, trying to get the biggest fights possible, and he got a Devin Haney. And I also want to add this intangible to it. He has a Turki Al-Sheikh, an opportunity to get in front of Turki Al-Sheikh as well. That's part of the conversation as well, man, to get an opportunity to perform in front of Turki and Turkey's star opponent. The last time that happened, I'm going to give you an example of what that happened with. That was Mark Chamberlain and Josh Padley. When Josh Padley beat Mark Chamberlain, all of a sudden he got into the Turkey business and he got that fight with Shakur Stevenson and he got a contract and he got a bunch of money, bought his house and quit his job. A fighter who's working still as an electrician, trying to be a full-time fighter, was able to do that because he got in front of Turkey and he hurt Turkey's one of his biggest fighters that he wanted to push in Mark Chamberlain. So Brian Norman has a big opportunity because if he does fight Devin Haney, he's probably going to be on a Ring Magazine platform. It is going to be the payday, and it's going to be in front of a huge audience. That being said, and taking that into consideration, my guy Adel, man, tap in, man. Where you at on this fight?
I mean, that fight right there has to happen for two reasons. Brian, he's an inside fighter. Devin need an inside fighter right now because his brand is taking a hit. So he needs to be in the pocket. Brian Norman also needs someone who knows how to throw that stick because everybody see that's his total weakness, that mid-range game. So if them two get on that platform and actually able to go 12 rounds, that'd be best for them on far as their brands. It don't even matter who wins. You know what I'm saying? Because when it comes to improving, like you said, whether you win or lose, as long as you improve, that's what it's all about for me as an athlete. You know what I'm saying? So I think that if it goes 12 rounds, we could be looking at Brian and Devin 1 and 2 instead of that Ryan and Garcia shit. You know what I'm saying? Stock for a lot. 1 and 2. We don't want to see cheaters 1 and 2. We want to see real fighters getting that opportunity to get that real bag back to back. And it ain't got to be no smoke. This is all about just this fighter makes me better because people are trying to hurt my brand for these reasons. And so, I think that's what those two men need to look at. Like, this is going to improve me. You know what I'm saying? So for further on, and I don't think neither one of them going to get really beat up. I really don't. I don't really think neither one of them are stupid enough to Devin to keep his hand down and get caught with that left cross all the damn time. And I think Brian definitely gonna get a taste of that stick and know how to pivot more often and be more lateral. So I think they're going to teach each other a lot of things, and that could be a 1 and 2 man, like you know how like Wilder. You know what I'm saying? I think that's going to be a real situation where one guy can really focus on that outside mid range, and the other guy is just throwing them haymakers for your head. And if he touch your chin, you know what I'm saying, it's good night Irene. So yeah, I really think that's a good fight. Both of them.
I love the idea of the development that you brought up. The idea that both these guys can benefit at the end of this fight, walk away better fighters. That Norman can get that savvy boxer who stays on that jab, and that can force certain development things that happen in a positive way for him. And also, Devin Haney gets a real taste of 147 and beyond, right? 154 potentially. He gets to really gauge who he is in his grit. And force him to make certain adjustments as well. And I think also check some boxes for the boxing space as far as who is Devin Haney since the Ryan Garcia fight. Like, who is this guy since that fight? And I think Brian Norman is his huckleberry. I think that's a guy to really put all questions to rest. Is he done, or is he back better than ever? Was it the weight cut? Was he depleted? Was he dehydrated? Did he have a bad night? Is he PTSD'd out? Did 147 pounds make sense for him now? He's a strong fighter. Who knows? Who knows, right? I love that perspective, Adam.
And you know, I gotta say this because I'm Oakland, California, West Oakland, Acorn Projects, born and raised. So I'm from where Bill is from. That's that attitude you see right there. That's our cultural perspective on how we talk. And and it's sad that it's kind of received on a back end as he's being an asshole. That's just how we are. We're very confident people in the Bay Area, and we call you out. But we don't want no physical problems. We just letting you know where your place at around us when we walk in the room. And, it doesn't have to be any type of racial hate. It doesn't have to be any type of real smoke on the streets or nothing like that. That's just how we are. I talk like that, you know what I'm saying? And for his whole career, I've been seeing Bill never really have to throw a punch. You know what I'm saying? Never really need any security. He pull up wherever you at because he's not really looking for the real smoke.
Bernard and him almost kind of almost went level with Bernard.
Bernard stock for a lie on Bernard, Muslim buddy. The two Muslims fighting. Come on, bro.
I know that was crazy. That was, in my opinion. I agree with you.
You already know, man. Like, don't call Aki out to the bathroom. Like, we ain't going
on the camera too for the world to see. Come on, man. That was.
Bernard was scared, and I'm glad Bill didn't bite on that. Okay, like Bill was like, no, it happened here. Whatever happened here, go in here.
Bill knew Tom was too, though. Shout out to Bill, but Bill understood that conversation didn't need to happen in no bathroom as well. He understood that very well. He understood that conversation didn't happen in nobody's bathroom. But what are you talking about, bro? You crazy? Are you wild, bro? I'm wearing Louis right now, bro. Back up on me, brother. Shout out to Echo, man. Echo tapping in, man. I've sold it the best I can, man. But, you know, it is what it is at the end of the day. Two men getting in the ring, squaring up. Devin Haney looking for redemption. Didn't get it in the Jose Ramirez fight, right? Did not get redemption. If anything, dug the hole a little deeper for him as far as people questioning where he's at mentally in the game. And then Brian Norman, looking for an opportunity. He's looking for that opportunity. He thought it was going to be Jaron Ennis. It might not be Jaron. He's going to Japan. He's looking to show improve. On the back end of that, Bill Haney's on his helmet and says, listen, man, me, you next. How do you feel about that fight, Echo?
I agree with what Coach Eddie said earlier about Norman fighting somebody else other than Boots, because obviously that'd be more of a difficult fight. But really, to be honest, Haney's fighting scared. To be honest, he looked like he's fighting scared. Now, Boots won't move up until he's tested himself. He's not going to fight like Murtazalo. He won't fight him. He'll fight somebody else. He's not going to fight probably the toughest guy at that weight. That's if Crawford decides to go back down. But personally, I think, you know, styles make fights. People talk about, you know, Haney fighting Norman. Norman's not going to be scared of Haney. And he's going to be more proactive, more than Ramirez was. You know, because that was the perfect comeback fight for Haney, really, to show what he could do, to be more like like what he did against
Regis.
Yeah, Regis. Yeah, that's why I was expecting something like that. But there was nothing like that. It was just punching, clinching. He was clinching all the time. I mean, the art of boxing is to move and make the person miss, but make him pay.
Mm-hmm.
Not run around for 45 seconds, then throw a punch, then clinch.
Mm-hmm.
That's not boxing. I mean, a lot of boxers moved around, even going back, right back, I'm talking about 20s and 30s, 40s. But they didn't do that. I mean, Benny Leonard was perfect for doing circular footwork and pivoting off and everything. Willie Pep, but they never ran around the ring like what they're doing nowadays. Mm-hmm. Although Willie Pep wouldn't fight without throwing a punch, he wouldn't around without throwing a punch.
Right.
That's what he's famous for one of the times. But he didn't do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He was boxing, he was punching, and that's why I want to see the fighters do today. Take chances, and you need that X factor. What I mean, X factor, just to be able to throw it all, let it all go. Because when you're trying to punch with people, like Rock'em Sock'em, there's always going to be some kind of mishap. You've only got to look at Ortiz versus what's his name when he fought.
You talking about Virgil? Or you talking about Victor?
Victor Ortiz. When he fought. What's his name? Berto.
You talking about when he quit or when he fought Berto? That was a good fight, him and Andre Berto.
Yeah, but that was a Rock'em Sock'em really as much as anything.
I love
it. It was a great fight. But you're not going to see many fights like that, nowadays because people don't do that anymore.
Right.
Like Alvarez, and Brandon Rios.
Right.
That was a great fight. Not the most skillful, but skillful enough to look great. You know what I mean? To have a good, But I want to see Brian Norman and see what he can do in this fight. But I don't think he should fight Boots. But I don't think Boots will fight him if he looks good.
No. Now you're making Boots sound bad. Now you're making it sound like you don't want no problems.
I'm joking. But I think the Boots won't move up and fight Murtaza. He won't fight him. He'll fight somebody else. That's more of a dangerous fight.
I'm predicting the Uenis-Tellez fight for Boots. That's what I like for him. I like that. I think there's an interim WBA title for him there, and I think that's a great introduction into the division. I think that's a good little fight for him right there.
But Barros is the weakest of the welterweights.
Is he? That's what. Yeah. Okay. So listen. Okay. So I'm gonna ask you the question on the back end of a victory here, on a dominant victory against Jin Sasaki in Japan. Is Brian Norman Jr. the top of the food chain in the 147-pound weight class division? Is he the new Boots of the division? Obviously factor in Boots leaving, going to 154, leaving Brian Norman to his own vices. Is he the guy at 147 at this point?
More than likely, yeah. Until somebody else proves anything otherwise, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we can all believe anything, but we don't know much.
It's a fact.
Knowing and believing are two different things. Yeah. People say to me, I've heard people say on these panels, I know that he's going to win. I know this guy's going to knock this guy out. But how many of these people are actually betting money, like drawing all the money out of the bank and saying, putting a win on somebody like Tank to beat, anybody? Nobody's doing that. Because we don't know anything. Anybody can lose.
It's a fact, especially if you're sleeping, especially if the person doesn't take that opponent. If he's looking past that opponent. We've seen how that can go in a whole different direction. Shout out to Caleb Plant. Shout out to Ryan Garcia. I'm going to go ahead and move on to Anton. Anton, man, are you there, man? I know you've been quiet. I know you're driving.
Yeah, I'm here.
No doubt. So listen, man. I don't want to keep selling it, man. It is what it is, man. Brian Norman Jr., Devin Haney. What does this fight? Is this fight a fight that needs to be made if it can be made on the back end of Brian Norman winning his fight and not getting Jerron Boots in his fight? Is this the best thing for Brian Norman and also maybe even the best thing for Devin Haney? I don't know. What do you think?
I agree with HLD and with Coach Eddie. So I agree with Coach Eddie on the point.
Kind of like they're kind of on two different pages. Okay, go ahead, man. Bring it together.
That's why I'm gonna give the. I agree with Coach Eddie on the sense that if they offer that fight to Norman, he needs to snatch that up with the quickness. But I agree with HLD on the fact that I think that Bill Haney and Devin and them, they just trying to keep their names right. Brian Norman is a hot name right now in boxing. He's a hot name. He got the Jin Sasaki fight. He got the Boots fight in the future, maybe, or something like that. So he's a hot name. I got an uncle that's just like Bill Haney, just like Addo said, little slick talker, fast talker, all of that. Every time I see him, he talk money right out my pockets. Every time I see him, he always end up with $100 or something out my pocket. I'm like, damn! Every time he get me every time. So I think that Bill Haney's whole plan is to just build his son, but it's not necessarily building in the sense of making the best fights. That's not always the outcome. But if they offer that fight to him, to Brian Norman, he needs to hop on that fight ASAP. I like everybody on the panel, so I take something what everybody said, like Addo said. Both of them will be winners in this fight, even if somebody loses. They'll learn from each other. Their stock is going to grow. But I'm just on the side where, though, I'm at the prove it phase right now with Bill and Devin. Like, until they get in the ring with these certain people, especially somebody up for that hit list, it just sounds like a lot of talk to me, man.
Listen, that's what happens when you talk, like Bill does. And listen, man, I love watching Bill talk, bro. Even sometimes it be cringe sometimes, but I like to see him talk his ish, bro. Let him have it. You know what I mean? I love him to do, but the one thing about talking is, you put a lot of pressure on yourself. You know what I mean? People ask you to show and prove. When you run in your mouth, people going to finally ask you to show and prove. So yeah, man, this is an opportunity for him to show and prove. I'll say that, in defense of Devin, I've never seen Devin shy away from real adversity. You know what I'm saying? He seems like he dives into it. He's always tried to make the biggest fights happen from my perspective. And I think, a lot of times when the fights don't happen, it's usually people trying to dismiss or devalue what he brings to the table and trying to make it sound like he's not that much of a draw or whatever have you. But ultimately, for the most part, when it's all said and done, whenever somebody's willing to, Devin seems to be there to facilitate a space for them to get it in at. So I think as long as Brian Norman is there and him and Bob Arum are on the same page on how they plan on moving him in his career, I think Devin Haney and Bill Haney have the freedom and the room and space to move around the way they want to. And I think we got a big time, a lot of money behind Devin Haney right now as far as making that reward make sense. So listen, man, I think the pieces might be right where they need to be. And, Brian Norman giving the right performance tomorrow morning, I'm pretty optimistic about the fight coming together.
And Tank Davis did that. He was saying that back in the day about Devin. He just missed the fight with you don't sell enough, you're not a big enough draw. But I held Tank to the fire as well. When Tank was on, I believe, Najee's Cigar Talk, and Najee was saying names of fighters that Tank was saying that he would fight. And I haven't seen a fight yet, so I criticized him as well. When you talk, and you constantly talk, people are going to hold you to what you're saying.
Yeah. Tank is on a different trajectory, though. The thing is, Tank is on a different. He's a globetrotter of boxing, man. He's making his money with whoever it is, and he's good with that. And he's been telling you guys for years, I don't give a shit about belts. Leonard Ellaby been telling you guys he don't give a shit about any other legacy. If I could sell out a stadium and everybody want to watch me whoop on a tomato can, God bless me all. I'm going to take that money. And that's what they're doing.
And I respect Tank for that. I respect Tank.
You know what I mean? It's the truth. That's right. I have no problems with the fans, with the Tank fans and Tank himself, because Tank has been saying that for years and his people have been saying that for years. Now, what I want to understand is on the same panel, in the same damn breath, we're going to say that Haney, who got demolished by Ryan Garcia, ran like a chicken shit versus Ramirez, is a good fight for Brian Norman Jr. I mean, for Brian Norman Jr. But then we're going to say, what does Teal bring to the table for Boots when he is the two-time lineal champion, an actual champion?
Can I add some perspective? Let me add some perspective to what you're saying, right? Because I understand where you're coming from, right? But I'm going to tell you the difference. The difference is the story. The story behind Devin Haney right now is strong. People want to know. They're trying to figure out how. You got certain people who've already made their decision and put out their judgment on Devin Haney. But there's certain people like myself and other people who are still in the air. I don't know what to make of Devin Haney right now. And we need the right dance partner. When he got in there with Jose Ramirez, what did we see? We saw that if you don't make him, he won't do it. Jose Ramirez didn't have the footwork. He didn't have the pedigree to force Devin Haney to fight, so we didn't see Devin Haney fight, number one. Number two, we have a Brian Norman Jr. who doesn't look like he's going to get the fight with Jerron Boots Ennis, right? And he's a champion, but at the same time, he hasn't been tested properly. We haven't seen him show and prove really who he is because we're giving him a lot of credibility for what he did with Santillan. We're giving him credibility what he did with Derek Cuevas, but there was about 4 or 5 fights before those fights happened when we seen holes in that man's game, and we need to see him
to fight.
We need to see him
to fight.
Yeah, I mean that's cool. Now, number 3 is we have Turki Al-Sheikh, who's there willing to facilitate and put them on a big stage. It's a great fight because all those intangibles come together. We get to find out, and with the 5%,
assuming Turkey's involved with this shit. He's not.
Once a year, the 5%ers have something called show and prove, right? When everybody comes out and they test everybody, you know, you walk up in there and somebody gonna walk up and ask you to, you know what I'm saying, what's the mathematics, you know what I'm saying? Because you've been walking around all year saying you this, saying you that, but we don't know. So
Haney offers what makes this fight interesting to Norman Jr. today.
Devin Haney and Brian Norman Jr. Both of them have boxes we don't know, and it makes the fight intriguing. Now, as far as Teofimo and Jerron, the reality is Jerron doesn't need to be tested by Teofimo for him to know, for us to know who he is. You know who needs to test Jerron? Virgil. That's what we need to see from Jerron to get the questions answered over there. Teofimo, you know who needs to test Teofimo? Who Teofimo needs to show? He needs to operate at 140 and either unify in that division, fight Gary Antuanne, the boogeyman who nobody's bringing up in that division, or fight Devin Haney at 147.
This is just preference, bro. This is just bias and preference.
And Teofimo fight doesn't have that. You know what's behind that Jerron Ennis and Teofimo fight? And it's sad to say, right? And I think for this reason I'm going to speak on is why the fight shouldn't happen. Teofimo's built so much animosity amongst black fighters and black boxing fans in a space that just want to see him get beat up. But nobody has ever really sat there and entertained Teofimo Lopez as a legitimate test for Jerron Boots Ennis. It's just they want to see Jerron beat the brakes off of Teofimo because he's sitting out there playing with words like liquor and things like that and integrating other words into it and triggering a whole entire culture. It's a hype job behind the behind the Teofimo Lopez.
Is there a contract by Turkey for Haney and Norman Jr.?
Listen, I don't got time for it. I ain't gonna do this with you.
You asked me it's not. There's one with Turkey for both.
It is what it is. It is what I ain't doing this with you, HL. I ain't gonna do it with you.
Because you know that's the fact. It's a biased preference, and you're saying it right. You're outlining it.
Okay. The point is, if we're talking about Devin right now, did he turn down any fight that he was supposed to make in his last 3 or 4 fights? What opponent did he turn down?
Shakur Stevenson.
Now he didn't turn that down. Shakur
Stevenson. He offered Shakur Stevenson a purse. Shakur Stevenson didn't like it. They went to first bid. Devin dropped the belts, moved up.
So no, you don't get to say that I sent you a contract and I didn't like it. And
right.
He went to first bid. That's his right. That's a boxing rule.
This is right, but it's clearly Devin's right to vacate and go to 140. That's right there. That was a situation where Devin was saying, I have no legitimate reason to fight you in a weight class where I'm depleting myself to fight in.
Right.
If you want to make it work,
what
I'll do is I'll send you an offer. If you want the fight that bad, you'll take the offer I'm sending to you. I'll concede and do something I didn't want to do anyway and fight you. But if you're going to make it complicated and have to make this fair, as you might have to say about it,
it's a fighting game.
Fights go to first bid all the time.
But fighters vacate their belts all the time. And at the end of the day, Devin was made. Listen, I think it's clear as hell. For me, it's like you come to my crib, Antuanne, right? And you see my Corvette in my driveway. I have no intention on selling it. I like my Corvette. It's sitting there. I don't drive it as much as you think I should drive it. You think I want to get rid of it? Nah,
just like small top offered the Haney's a fight with Tio.
But you want my Corvette. So what I say to you, look, Listen, bro.
Shakur wants you to take your Corvette to the auction.
For my Corvette, and you can have it. And now you're like, hold on, let me go look at the Kelly Price book and see if it's working. Bro, forget it. I'm taking the Corvette off the table. It's all good. Oh, you didn't want to sell it in the first way. Yeah, I did.
If you go back and do your history,
last fall. Bill Haney said he didn't want to deal with Top Rank to fight T.O.
No, man.
You see,
you want to go to T.O. fight now? We can go there. But
last fall, just last fall, there was an offer by Top Rank for Haney's. And Bill on TV, we don't want to take that fight because we don't want to deal with Top Rank and blah,
they
blah,
wanted
blah.
to involve
And the pay-per-view
Turkey
threshold and all that stuff. Come on now.
It is what it is. It is what it is. I don't consider what Devin did with Shakur Duck, though. And listen, I'm going to tell you straight up. I got Ray Davis in the back right now. Actually, we blew him up. I don't know if he can even talk, but I used to argue with Ray Davis about this all the time because I felt like Devin low-key ducked Shakur, too. But after we had a lot of conversation, I'm like, you're right, dog. At the end of the day, Devin was on his way out the division. We all knew he was on his way out the division.
Clay, I just want to say one thing. If you go back to when Devin fought Lomachenko, after the fight, they asked Devin what was his plans. Devin said he was going to stay at 135. He said, I will send you the video on Instagram, wherever I have it. I will send you the video. He said he was going to stay there. And then when Shakur moved, everything happened. Devin dropped the belts. That was the only reason he got the duck label, because before that, he was never talking about going to 140. He never was. You can't find one video.
I don't know.
Well, but you can find the video. You can find the video
to accept the mandatory for T.O. at 140. And he took that.
You can find a video of him in Australia. You can find a video of him in Australia looking like Skeletor.
Yeah, exactly. We all knew that he was on his way out.
You can see that he was depleting himself.
Right now. Same thing with Boots right now. Boots might stick around and wait for Norman.
Right.
It's certain fights, legacy fights, that you might stick
and
around for.
He stuck around. He sent the contract.
Nobody else.
He sent the contract.
I just gave him that one. That's it.
He sent the contract, though, right?
He sent him a take it or leave it option. I don't see no problem. He sent him a take because at the end of the day, I already did it, man. I'm undisputed. I just fought Vasily Lomachenko. You're not a bigger fight than Vasily Lomachenko. I can wait for you to come to 140. I'm over here cutting weight, struggling to
just say, hey, I'm done with 135. Just keep it up.
He's not at 140.
Man,
listen. Okay, how about this? Right?
Yeah.
I love that you bring that up, right? Yes. I love that you bring that up, right? Because he's showing you how diabolical 135 really was.
Thank you.
He's showing you right there, like he can't even 140. He came in the ring with Ryan Garcia with the raccoon eyes, had the shades on, looking like Neo from the Matrix, like on the weight scale, like trying to hide it. Right? He barely did 140, so he already showing you 135 was a Marvel Comics movie. It wasn't realistic. It was CGI. He couldn't even do it. So he's showing you how crazy it would have been for him to be at 135. That's all that is, showing you that he had to go to 147. I mean, it is what it is. You know what I mean? It is what it is. So sorry.
This guy T.O., right? The kid T.O., right? T.O., in my opinion, he has plenty. I know y'all talking about that, but I just want to jump back on T.O. real quick. He has a lot of work at 140. But for some reason, he don't want it. Now, there was a time when they were entertaining the Brian Norman Jr. versus Teofimo Lopez. T.O. does not want to fight Brian Norman Jr. It's a bad style matchup. I think Brian Norman dog walks T.O. That's why they don't take that fight.
They weren't going to take
T.O. wants to take fight. T.O. wants to take fight that where if he loses, T.O. wants to take fights that if he stop for a minute. HLD, I've been silent for 20 minutes. Hold on. I know that's your man. Just chill out. But T.O. wants to take fights that if he loses, it does not hurt his profile. That's what he wants. All those other fights he loses to those guys, it hurts his profile. If T.O. loses to Jerron Ennis, that does not hurt his profile because Jerron done what he's supposed to do to the smaller man moving up.
Norman Jr. was not going to take the fight for no damn $200,000, and T was not going to take the little bit of money. Neither one were going to take that fight. Neither one.
Now the price is different. Now the situation is different. Now he's the champion. Now if T.O. wants to fight, if he wants to be a 3-division world champion, the opportunity is there. Sign the contract. You can fight Brian Norman Jr. and you can be a champion at 147 if you're that guy. Because that fight is still available. That fight can still be made. That fight can still be made. That fight can still be made. And I'm gonna stop right there because HLD is getting emotional. So
you just got no facts. You just trying to say that he got Norman Jr. when he wasn't going to take the fight for no $200,000. Where did he fight next? On the undercard of Michaela Mayer. Stop the cap. There was no money on the table for either one of those guys.
I gotta get stop the cap on my soundboard.
I gotta be on your intro.
Yeah, for sure, right?
I want to say mashallah to my brother. You lost your casual tag today, brother. I ain't going with that no more. You gotta change your name.
Nah, he was tapping in, wasn't he? You know what?
You got change your name.
As a smoke screen so he could talk, and we don't. But like you said, Antuanne, we done with that. No more of that.
Yeah, we done with that.
No more with you, bro. We done.
Yeah, I'm a hardcore casual. That's the way I call myself. I'm a hardcore casual.
Yeah, I'm just a casual, man. That's all I am. I can't tell nobody what type of contract they supposed to have or what type of footwork they were supposed to use. I ain't on that level yet.
I ain't know. Right, we're not like Echo. Hey, Echo, what happened in 1974, October 20th?
He's gonna tell you done messed up. You asking the wrong one, HL. You October. Let me tell you, he gonna do this for like 20 seconds and be like, oh yeah. And he gonna hand it right to you.
He gonna say it was a Thursday, it was raining, it was
He gonna go into the beautiful mind. He gonna go into that beautiful mind.
God bless him.
No doubt, man. So listen, I'm gonna dive into this a little bit. Well, first of all, David Benavidez, Caleb Smith looks like is getting close to coming full circle. That's a great thing, right? I was nervous for David Benavidez. I ain't gonna lie. I thought he was gonna get frozen out. It's still not done yet. It's still in the corner of Eddie Hearn, accept the offer, but it looks like they're entertaining it in a real way. Samson Leakowitz says he wants a fight to happen either in Vegas or in Dallas, Texas, but said something interesting as well and said that he's willing to take this fight to Liverpool if it makes sense to make the fight happen with Caleb Smith. He's willing to go fight Caleb Smith in his backyard. What do you guys think about that fight?
A good fight.
We can start with Echo. Echo can go at it, man. What do you think about that fight? Caleb Smith, David Benavidez, Vegas.
That'd be a good fight. Yeah.
You like it?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. I think David Benavidez. I don't want to see him go to cruiserweight, man. I feel like that's going to be the worst thing he ever did in his career. Not to say he's going to lose, but the idea that he would go up there, compete, and come back to the light heavyweight division to compete, I think it's going to hurt him.
It'll be a Roy Jones moment.
Yeah.
It will be a Roy Jones moment. That would be
right. Exactly a Roy Jones moment. It'll be a moment where he looks back at it and says, "The worst thing I ever did in my career, and the career that he potentially has in front of him to have, that weight move going up to cruiserweight 25 pounds and coming back down to light heavyweight back and forth might be the reason he gets clipped, and it might hurt that chin."
It might not be as bad as for him as it was for Roy, being as though Roy was more muscular. David Benavidez's body frame is a little bit different, but I do think it will be a bad decision. But it might not affect him as much. And Roy was a little bit older in age too, older than David was at the time.
Will they fight in the 18 ring though?
If they fight in
if it's on the Turkey card, it is.
Yep.
Yeah. Exactly.
Turkey said, "You fighting? Come
hey, yo, but right now. The thing about an 18-foot ring, that's still a good size ring. That's a big ring still. Yeah, I mean, the smallest ring that you could actually, not the 24 outside. No, that's 24 platform. If it's 24-foot ring, that means 20 inside the ropes. That's a huge ring. 18-foot ring is 18 inside the ropes. That's a decent sized ring. The smallest ring you can have an official fight in is 16 inside the ropes. That's a legal boxing match, 16 feet inside the ropes.
16? I didn't know that. I thought it was 18.
Yeah. You can have a legal boxing match at 16 foot inside the ropes. 18-foot ring, that's a medium sized ring. If you're putting the heavyweights in, the Tyson Fury, the Deontay Wilder, the Anthony Joshua, that requires a 20-foot ring because those are big guys. They take 2 steps back, they're on the ropes.
Right.
You know, it's all based on the size of the opponent.
Good point.
I like
I
it.
mean, but all the boxes, run to the ropes
nowadays. It's whatever, you know. Hopefully, you really mean something. Trying to be at 175, and and you're gonna fight either Bivol or Beterbiev after they have their third squabble. If not, bro, you just up there being an email champion for nothing.
It is what it is. It is
I
what it
do
is.
know that Colin Smith is coming to fight. So
Yeah.
one
He always
Benavidez is going to get exactly. He always comes to fight. He's not no pushover for nobody. Alter Beterbiev, kind of wore him down and got him out of there, and Canelo Alvarez. But
Yeah.
those is top level guys. And David Benavidez, I mean, we all might consider him a top level guy. Some people might, some people don't. But Caleb Smith is coming to fight. He's a warrior. I always liked the Caleb Smith because he's going to put on that Buatsi fight. Man, that was my favorite fight on that card that night. They went toe to toe. That was a hell of a fight. So David gonna be in for a dog fight because Caleb ain't going nowhere. At least not
Yeah,
easily.
I agree with what you just said. I think the last of the knockout and stoppages, I think David Benavidez gets no stoppages at 175. It's done. He's going to have to display his boxing skills, and this is going to be a good match because Callum is a good boxer. He has a lot of experience. He's been in with a lot of top opposition, and this is not. I think it's like maybe a 55-45 fight. That type of fight.
But
It's a very close fight.
Guys, is Callum Smith kind of like on the downside already? Is he like ready to walk out? You know what I mean? Retire? Isn't he on that path?
That's where I thought he was. HL, I was saying that when he went there with Joshua Buatsi, but he seems like he's got a second win. He's hit another.
He got a second win in that fight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, Clay, that he's got a similar height as well to Benitez. He's not Benavidez. He's not short.
I agree with you.
He got a good reach.
There's an argument to be made that David Morrell, if he had brought in Caleb Smith's experience, that he would have been a way more formidable opponent for David. Benavidez, right?
Yeah, I have more hopes for David Morrell on his forward progress, especially against this Russian coming up. I see him still long-term wise doing more damage than Benavidez.
I feel like if they had a rematch right now, I would favor David Morrell right now. If they had a rematch,
he was hurting him, bro. He was hurting David. The only thing David had more experience, in my opinion, is what won him the fight.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
I mean,
I agree with you, HLD. I agree with HLD. Yo, this is a phenomenon.
You agree with me when you don't. When you say it out loud, you
Yeah, right. You crazy. Listen, you was just selling some cap just a minute ago, man. You and Antoine Zick was on some crazy stuff. I'm not going to go backwards. We're going to move forward.
You put the right line. We can chop it up anytime. I'm always down to talk boxing, brother.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm always mad. I don't care what you down for. That's not what we was talking about. I'm just saying some of the things you guys were saying with non-factual information. I know it's just some things you left out on the table when you was talking, but we're going to move forward. We're going to stay on David Benavidez. We move past that. I got disconnected. I got disconnected. I mean, we can revisit it after we conversate, or if you want, if Clay wants to. But as far as David Benavidez and Caleb Plant, what's that? I'm sorry. Thank you. I don't know why I say thank you. I don't know why I say Caleb Plant. He a bum. I'm taking that from Ross Clyde book. Yeah, Caleb Smith, whatever Smith. He shows a lot, man. And I think I told Clay when Clay thought he was washed up and stuff. I said, no, this guy's a real boxer, bro. I said this guy has what it takes to defeat Buatsi. And Buatsi, even though he's a good boxer, he gave a good challenge. He was outmatched. He was outclassed with experience, and experience does help. In this fight here, I think Benavidez does pose the bigger threat because I think it's the hand speed. I think it's the I don't know what's going on with them, but I think it's the fact that Caleb Smith has the ability to. I'm sorry, Benavidez had the ability to keep him his guard up, and by him keeping his guard up, that's going to put his hands in his pocket, and that gives Benavidez the win. But on the other hand, Caleb Smith is a smart boxer. He knows how to use distance well, and though he comes in and rumbles at the same time, you know what I mean. He poses no threat with power to a Benavidez to keep him honest and make him change his game plan. So I think that's where the fight goes. I think Benavidez will have the opportunity to take that victory easily.
I think he got a little sting. I think he got a little pop on his punches, though. I think he got a little pop. Maybe
Yeah,
not
he's
one shot
inside
knockout power, but he got a
in
little
the phone
sting.
booth.
Yeah,
No, in
yeah,
the
yeah.
phone booth he does. But I'm talking about with his jab. Like if he tries to work him, it's not going to work. Because Benavidez is going to keep him right there. He's going to throw too many punches for him to work on the inside. That's the problem. His output is too much. And I think that's going to keep his hands in his pockets because he's going to try to smother. He's going to smother him from punching back. And I think when you do stuff like that to fighters that like to get in the inside and use that ability to box in the phone booth, that kind of hurts their chances. Can he punch between punches? Absolutely. It's boxing, and that's what we expect him to do. But does he? That's another question.
You
Yeah.
got
Yeah,
good footwork too.
Callum has a great left hook. I think that's his best punch. Best
Yeah,
punch is his
I
left hook.
agree. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
he's
it
going to have
is.
to look out for
Mm-hmm.
that shot. He has a very good,
And
powerful
Yeah.
left hook that can put you down.
And he got good,
Benavidez is always
solid
walking
footwork.
back or moving back with his right hand down. If you watch carefully,
And he
he drops his
Yes, he
right hand a
does.
lot.
But usually,
stings on the center
but
line.
yes, or that's usually in the beginning of the fight. Echo when he has his hand down and before he starts throwing, he's trying to measure up and get his
No, I'm on
gather his
about when he's
distance.
backing away. He did that against Morel. He did that lots of times.
Yeah, he
Oh
does
yeah,
that.
A
well
lot
that
of
was
times.
yeah he does
When he's
yeah
after the
absolutely.
combination or in between the transitions, he backs away with his right hand down, even if he's not within a punching range sometimes.
Mm,
He
yeah,
steps out of punching range
yeah.
with his right hand down. He does that a lot. That's why I always believe Canelo would have beaten him if they'd have fought earlier. Like maybe the Canelo would
I
have
said that
beaten
too.
Plant. I thought the Canelo that beat Plant would have beaten Benavidez for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's that
You're right.
right hand dropping, that left hook.
You're right.
Guys, we got the like 30 something people in the building. Take an opportunity, please go ahead and hit that like button, hit the thumbs up if you haven't done it yet. And obviously I invite you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. So guys, I want to segue and move on to Gary Antuanne Russell a little bit in this 140-pound weight class division situation that's panning out. We know Hitchins calling out unification with Teofimo Lopez, or even considering going up to 147 pounds to fight at Devin Haney, but we don't hear him talking about unifying with a WBA champion in Gary Antuanne Russell. Gary Antuanne seems to have this dark horse boogeyman aura around him in the 140-pound weight class division. Where do we sit at as far as Gary Antuanne Russell in the division? Is he the most dangerous fighter at 140 as far as the champions are concerned, or does Teofimo Lopez still get the accolades because of what it says on paper?
I think it's both, though. It's both, don't you think? I think he is a dangerous fighter, but I don't think he's the boogeyman. And the problem is that he's not out here on these streets looking for that smoke. At least putting himself out there. He's at PBC Island, so I think all the fighters know it's almost impossible. It's hard to get a fight across the street with them. You know what I mean? And so I don't think nobody's really trying to make some noise out of it. Obviously, if it comes down to it, if contract's there and whatever, yeah, I don't see nobody really saying no to the fight. Tio himself said when it comes to hey, they grew up like brothers, they're family, but if the contract's there and it's I'm sure that we'll both entertain it, but it's just difficult because you're on that side of the street, and Gary's kind of like his brother, bro. Like once every 2 years, once a year type of fighter. That he needs to pick up that momentum, because I really believe the PBC has stagnated his true growth and potential of what this young man could really be representing out here. Fighting once every 2 years, and maybe now just recently he fought maybe a couple times now in a year, but it's just not enough to get this train moving. But I think he is a dangerous fighter, no doubt. A boogeyman, no. I mean, but I think he's definitely a force to be reckoned with. That's for sure. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. Without a doubt. Coach Eddie, how you feel about Hitchins calling out how do you feel about people calling out everybody at 140, but Gary Antuanne Russell? Coach Eddie might be tied up. Go ahead. I don't know, Adolf, if you want to tap into this, right, about Gary Antuanne at 140.
No, I don't have any too much to say about that one.
No doubt. Anton, how you feel about it?
Yes, sir. I do think it's a mixture of Gary being on PBC and maybe not getting all of the fights, but I also think more of a percentage is that people don't want to fight Gary. People don't want to fight him. I do think he's a little bit a boogeyman in that division. Man, that tempo is hard to keep up with, man. He's going to keep coming. And the thing about it is, Rayo didn't even want to fight him. Rayo didn't want that fight at all. Robert Garcia, they did not want to fight Gary Antoine Russell.
Yeah,
They felt
that was
like
a
they was
PBC hit
forced into
job.
that fight. Exactly. They didn't want that fight at all.
That was
So
definitely a hit job by the PBC. I'm calling that.
I think that the problem with Tio is we all know that Tio is talented. We all know that. We know if anything Tio is, he's a talented fighter. The thing is, we don't know which Tio is ever going to show up. So I would favor Gary Antoine Russell in that fight, and I would favor him to be probably the number one in that division based off of his boxing skills, not the accolades and the belt that he had or the Ring magazine and all of that. I would put Preo, me personally, number 2 in that division. I don't think people say his name a lot either. Ain't nobody just calling out Alberto Preo. Maybe it's because he's not the biggest draw or whatever the case may be. But I'm at the point now with a couple fighters, like my favorite fighters, the Tanks, the Devins, the Shakors, the Tios, all of them guys right there. It's either put up or shut up right now. So you either gonna get in the ring with the best guys and fight the best, or we moving on and we starting to grow the younger champions, the Abdullah Masons, the Floyd Schofields, and all of those type of guys. Because that 4 King era, we got Tank versus Ryan, Devin versus Ryan, Tio versus nobody, this person versus. So it's up in the air. But at 140, I think Gary Antoine Russell is probably the most dangerous fighter at 140 because he can cut the ring off, and a lot of people just can't keep up with that tempo, man. It's hard.
Yeah. Is there a dream fight at 140 that you guys would be interested in seeing? Like a fight that makes the most sense at 140 right now?
I want to see Gary get his get back with Alberto Preo. I want to see him get that. I want to see Hitchins and Teofimo Lopez. We already got Alberto Preo. He about to fight Sabrel Matias. So that right there shape up the division. And then we'll know who's who.
I like it.
Where you definitely, if he defeats Matias, he's gonna solidify himself as the most with the most probably names at that division, because that means he beat Antuanne, he beat Sandor Martin. He beat
Sabril.
He beat Paro, right? Did he beat Paro?
No, he
didn't beat Liam.
But then if he beats Matias, those are 3 solid names in a row.
Right. And everybody knows he would have beat Rolly. And he popped on that PED test.
And nobody calling out Sandor Martin. That guy's not everybody. Nobody called that man out to want to, do you want to test what you got with that guy? Because arguably, someone said that he may have won that fight with Puello. I'm just saying he's a problem too, but nobody wants him. As you saw, he dropped his belt not to fight him even after the purse bid. So the guy's a problem still, and he showed that against Puello. So, but Puello's got hey man, he does this with Matias. You got to give the man his full on respect at that division.
No, I agree.
He might get an Isak Cruz fight after that.
I would say at 140 that I would want to see Hitchins and Keyshawn. That's what I would say at 140.
We gotta bring Keyshawn into the conversation at some point.
Frank Martin there now too.
Yeah, Frank Martin in there too. 140 is going to brew up a little bit. I'll be honest with you. I'm be 100 with you. First of all, I think the fight still that I want to see, I think the most exciting fight of the year, quality fight that can happen at 140 right now is Gary Antoine Russell and Subriel Matias. I think that fight is crazy. I think that fight is crazy on paper. But listen, man, I think that when it comes to Teofimo Lopez, I need that man to make a decision. Are we participating in the party, Are we at no 140-pound conversation, or are you leaving? Because I think you're holding up the division, bro. And I think you've been playing games for a little while now. So you're going to fight these other fighters in this division or let go of that belt, man. Go fight Brian Norman. Go challenge him for a
He
WBO
just thought it's
title.
mandatory. What are we talking
I
about?
don't care. What mandatory? Arnold Barboza? That was cute.
Yeah.
That's adorable. But you know what? I'm okay with that fight, right? But I want to hear the conversation about him fighting Hitchins, him fighting Gary Antuanne Russell, him fighting the winner between Alberto Puello and Sabrina Matias. I want to see him operating inside that 140-pound weight class.
The next few weeks will determine.
I don't want to hear no more about Boots. If you keep talking about Boots, then I'm going to bring up Brian Norman.
Hey, what happens if they announce Tio and Boots on the undercard of Canelo?
Yeah. Let's do it. Then leave. Leave. Leave it now. I'm just going to be doing a 140-pound weight class division with fighters in the division that want to fight each other. I want to see the division.
Tio not big enough for 147, man. He's not big enough.
Hey, man.
That's his problem.
He just operate at 140.
That's Tio's problem. That's not my problem.
He's right. He's right. No, he's right. HL's right, bro. That's
I'm not saying he's right, but hey, my man wants to go up there, and I want to see it. Simple as that.
Yo, I said the same thing.
He ain't doing nothing but talking, man. He's yapping like a chihuahua that's yapping around people's heels, man. He won't do it. He won't do it, man. He just turned out $11 million. He just turned out $11 million contract.
It turned out it wasn't 11, but at the end of the day, Tio, do something. If it's going to be Jerron, do it. If it's going to be, do something. But I don't like him holding on to that 140 belt. And they basically had to bribe him into fighting Arnold Barboza off the back end that he thought he was going to get Jerron Ennis. If it wasn't for that, he was going to fight
Not
Arnold
true, because we were supposed to be on that Times Square card. It should have been Tio versus Hitchinson. But his manager decided to split the dough. No, you make your money with Ken Bosos, and we're gonna make money over here with Barboza. You see, that's what the manager did.
Right.
But it should have been Hitchins, but then they played that out like that.
I ain't gonna lie to you. I got my eye on Kevin Conley. Kevin Conley need to get in line. Like right now, you still cool, but you keep playing around. You've been involved in some weird conversations lately, brother. I'm gonna need you to, you know what I mean? I'm not. You ain't done nothing diabolical yet, nothing too crazy. But in a minute, you about to interfere with boxing, and that's gonna be an issue.
He messing up the Mosh's money, the Zakat box, man. He messing up the Zakat box.
Exactly, Al. You know what I'm saying? We just watching you right now. We ain't gonna put past judgment right now, but you got maybe one or two more of these interesting little moves that happen before we start looking at you kind of weird with the side eye.
He's stealing out of the Seneca box.
Yes. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying it is what it is. We won't let it go for now. But
Eddie Hearn trying to Eddie what's his name? Keith Conley is acting like Tony Montana trying to cut out Sosa to get to Pablo Escobar directly. You know what I'm saying? He's like, now we're gonna cut the middleman out, cut Sosa out, and no, you're gonna get your cut. You're gonna get your neck cut off.
Yeah. When he does that, you gonna hear him say, "I told you a long time ago." Never, he gonna. Who you think you're talking to?
Before you know that,
you know who you're talking to?
That phone's gonna be like, ain't gonna be nobody on the line, bro. I ain't gonna keep talking to you. I ain't gonna keep talking to you about the same thing now. I done told you already, bro. I ain't gonna keep talking to you now. Keep on talking crazy.
Listen, ain't no say hello to my little friend because they're gonna have him on, bro.
You better get ready. So Connie's trying to system right now, man. You playing around. Yeah. Guys, I want to tap into I wanted to tap into this conversation. I might save it for tomorrow. Obviously, we'll be reacting to the fight tomorrow. We'll be talking about what happened to Brian Norman, but I want to talk about Moses Atuma, Dillian White. I want to talk about David Adeleye, Philip Ergovich. I want to talk about Anthony Kakachi, Raymond Ford. I want to talk about 130-pound weight class division. I want to talk about Lamont Rose's WBA 130-pound belt. I want to talk about unifications, and I want to talk about championship boxing, world championship boxing. You know what I'm saying? But I also don't want to drag this any longer than it is already. I might have to save it for tomorrow. I'm be real with you. I might.
I think Ray had a point.
I appreciate that, man.
I did, but Clay pushed me off. He's like, nah.
Yeah, Ray was trying to say something.
No, I was just saying. I think the whole 140-pound division that you guys are speaking about, Teofimo and his point. Teofimo looks like he's reluctant to fight at 140 again. It looks like he wants to just chase the lineal title. That's what he's looking to do and what he wants to do going forward. Oh, hold on, sorry. Yeah, I didn't realize it either. So, you all right? So I think when Teofimo's chances of fighting at 140 may be slim to none. I think he's moving forward to the 147-pound division. As far as Antuanne being a boogeyman, no, I think Matias is the boogeyman still, and I think Antuanne is more of the guy that people don't want to fight, not because he's a boogeyman, but because well, not because he's a boogeyman, because he's the toughest fight. He's the risk with no reward because he's not the payday. He's not the guy that's going to give everyone all those. Okay, hold on. Actually, go ahead. I'm gonna continue this later. You got to check him.
Yeah, do what you do, man. Yeah, man. I think I agree too. I think Gary Antuanne being on that PBC, I think PBC Island, guys, outside of Gervonta Tank Davis, I think PBC Island has a lot to do with the business as well. I think the business just ain't popping with the PBC like that.
You know what I'm saying? How I see Antuanne being a big name to get. Let's say if one of these 140 champions collects the 3 belts, and and they just need that one more, kind of like what Canelo did with Plant, and then at that point, because it's for undisputed, maybe we'll have some more money in the pot for that to be a bigger fight. But at the time being, because nobody knows Antuanne Russel. All due respect, I think the kid is talented, but nobody knows who the hell he is.
Yeah, it is what it is. All right, guys,
Okay,
man, I'm about to close it up. We're going on 3.5 hours. What were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to finish up. My bad. Coach Eddie.
Oh no, who was it? Was it you, Ray? Go ahead. I thought
Ray.
it was Coach. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was saying that. Yeah, absolutely. What HLD just touched on is absolutely true. As far as it being like Hitchins doesn't look like he wants to fight anybody that's at the top contention. Even like I mentioned earlier, even his mandatories with the tougher fights, he looks like he's looking to take easy fights. He pulled up. I don't want to say he pulled up. Kambosos moved up to 135. He said he chose Kambosos because he wanted the name, the recognition. So it looks like I said earlier, it looks like he's only fighting for the bag. He's not fighting for the he's not fighting for the legacy. He's not fighting for the belts. He just wants his cash. He wants to get there fast pace. He looked like he made a little bit name of himself fighting Kambosos. He used Eddie for that, which was wrong because Eddie put all the chips in the basket for him. That right there is just some snake shit, but that's another story for another day. I don't see Hitchins really competing with any of the top guys in the division. But as far as that goes, that's all I really got.
It is what it is, man.
That's all I got.
Salute to everybody in the building, man. Please remember to hit the like button if you haven't done it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, I don't know what you're waiting for. Maybe you'll do it tomorrow.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers.
Yeah,
yo,
we had some Akis on the panel today, man. I felt good. I like y'all. You know what I mean? That was a good feeling, man. You guys need to keep showing up, man. What's up?
Clay, I do want to give one more thing. I want to say to Otto, man, you're not a casual fan. If you know anything about boxing and you pay attention to the sport, that doesn't make you a casual. If you don't go sport to sport, and just have nothing to say and you just want to sit down and watch a good fight, that makes you a casual fan. You having some knowledge of the sport does not make you a casual fan. That makes you somebody that's a gamer. You can always learn more and educate yourself more. But you right there, you have some facts and some understanding. So lose that casual tag, my brother.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. I'm trying to get my children into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, and keep that tag of having your sons involved, man, with whatever it is that they want to do. That is what I appreciate when I heard you say that. I'm like, yeah, that's king above everything, bro. So good for you and your kids, bro. I do appreciate that.
Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you. Y'all have a good one, man. Enjoy the rest of your
evening. To everybody. Yo, HL, thank you for showing up, man. You've been this 2 days in a row. Don't get me used to this. I appreciate you being in the building.
He just want to fight me, Clay.
No, I know.
I told him we don't fight.
HLD in a different way when it comes to this boxing talk, bro. You know what I'm saying? And I just wanted an opportunity. It's always kind of hostile sometimes, but once we break past the ice, see that a very knowledgeable brother, man.
HLD is a wrestler. It's a good matchup too because HLD is a wrestler and I'm a judo star, bro. Like that's really good.
Man, you be on your back crying, bro.
I don't
Oh
know,
man,
bro. I'll
set
reverse
it
you
up.
quick.
Pay per view. Pay per view.
I'll reverse you. I'll reverse you quick, bro. Have you?
How you want to get taken down? You want a single leg or a
Ray,
double
did you do
leg?
judo?
Nah, man.
How you want it?
Listen, yeah, I did a little boxing. I did some judo, and I definitely did some taekwondo as a kid. But
So you know
I was a
what?
brown belt in judo. I trained in
Okay,
boxing for football. I did football.
okay.
I trained in boxing for footwork. I was a running back. And
I did
as far as
judo
like
for one.
taekwondo,
I did
huh?
judo. I did judo for 7 years. I did.
Oh yeah, it's good. It's a good counter. Like you learn how to counter a lot of stuff, man. It's really good. I will use his weight against him crazy. He won't even realize I'm doing it. Train him. You talk about traps in boxing and be trapped in wrestling, you'd be mad.
Is what it is, man. Coach Eddie was gonna say something too. I know that. I
Now,
feel like
Oh
salute,
no,
HLD. I'm just messing
I'm
with you.
good. I just want to say salute, good
I
panel.
love Ray.
You know, you might have to send the contract to HLD. Now HLD, don't duck the contract. Now you're gonna make sure the contract got everything you want in it. You know what I'm saying? Don't start no A side. I'm the A side. I'm the star. You know, now
It just better
sign the
be 10
contract.
figures. That's all I'm saying. It better be 10 figures.
yeah.
Yeah. Salute, brother. Y'all take it easy, man.
Salute to all you guys, man. Salute
That's
to
what's up.
everybody in the chat, bro. Thank you for all the support. Super chats, Big Adult Choice showing love. Thank you for showing up. Echo, you want to close this out and say something?
I was just going to say about the guy who talked about being a casual. All he needs to do is buy a book on Encyclopedia of Boxing, study it for about a week. Know more than 80% of the people online.
You're right.
Seriously.
You're right. And Echo, I appreciate you being in the building, always educating us, man. And like I said, people like you, like scholars, the real scholarship that come to this space, legitimize and validate the space. You know what I'm saying? Your presence makes it it's like it cosigns us. So let's just, sends a message to the world that, this is a boxing platform and credible, it brings credibility to the space. I think that's the word. So I appreciate you being here, man.
You're welcome, and it's always a pleasure to come and see you guys anyway.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
That's
sir.
why I support you guys.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
Love to
Take
have
it
you,
easy.
man. Appreciate you.
Have a good day,
All right.
man.
You too.
All
Echo.
right.
Peace. So it is what it is, right, Davis? Another one in
man.
the books, man. Boxing is doing great, man. We got a big fight happening tomorrow morning. I'm going to be up doing the live. I'm going to try to. I need stops. I'm going to do it. I'm going to wake up. I'm covering this fight. So I'm probably gonna do 2 lives tomorrow. I'm gonna do the live for this, and then we'll do the live at 11 o'clock to go over everything that we saw. But man, great conversation today, right? Great little panel today. What you think?
Absolutely. Listen, man, I was listening in. I had to go to the doctor, do my physical, 100%, blood work fine. No health problems. They do want me to do the Roto-Rooter. I'm like, whatever, it's about that time anyway, right? You got to do it at a certain age. So I might as well do the Roto-Rooter test and get that over with. Oh my goodness, I can't. All y'all laughing. Y'all gonna have to do it if y'all young, so don't worry about it.
Have to. If you can do the poop test, the at-home poop test, and as long as that comes on point, you ain't got to go in for the real deal. You ain't got to go get.
Oh, you ain't got to do the Roto-Rooter? Or she even put the paperwork in. That damn doctor.
The home test is like, I don't want to talk about
it. I don't want to be sending people seeds and stuff. You know what I mean? Know what I'm eating? That's crazy.
Listen,
but anyway, I got you, man.
Getting something up in your,
hey, man. Listen,
push that off.
You right about that. You damn sure right about that, bro. I'm pretty sure they laughing at me in the chat, but I'm like, listen, man, it is what it is, man. That's what
we hit that
age, it's a part of the health, man. It's a part of health. And
shout out to we on the bad side of 40. You know what I'm saying? We ain't on the good side of 40. We on the bad side.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. All right, let me go. Salute.
No doubt,
I'll catch you later. Got to go into the appointment for my son now.
No doubt.
All
Salute to everybody in the building. It's your boy Clay. It's your boy Race at ATP Combat Media Show, man. Remember to hit the likes, subscribe if you haven't done it. Until the next one. At this point, we out.